Chapter 1462. The 9 Great Saint Runes. With the assistance of the Ice Fire Saint Rune, Yun absorbed the ice and fire energy at an extremely fast speed. In just half an hour, he had completely refined the ice and fire energy from the void. Of course, the reason why it was so fast was because Zhuowen had already refined the Ice Fire Saint Rune. Who are you? After absorbing the ice and fire energy, Zhuowen discovered that the power of the void around him had disappeared. To be able to use the laws of the void on him without him noticing and prevent Zhuowen from breaking free, it was obvious that the other party's mastery of the laws of the void was above his. Now, Zhuowen was very curious about the identity of the mysterious person who had suddenly appeared. Not only did this person master the laws of the void, but he also seemed to be very familiar with the Ice Fire Saint Rune. There was no doubt that this person's cultivation was far superior to Zhuowen's, but this person did not snatch the Ice Fire Saint Rune from him. Instead, this person had helped him bring the ice and fire energy from the ice and fire dual polarity hall to Zhuowen. What was his purpose? Who I am is actually not important. What's important is that you now owe me a big favor. Do you understand? Hearing this, Zhuowen frowned slightly and said coldly, "Since that's the case, then all the more reason you should tell me your identity. After all, I owe you a favor and I have to repay it. How can I repay it if I don't know who you are?" Don't worry about that. When I feel that it's time for you to repay it, I will find you. A mocking laugh came from the void and continued, "Moreover, I can see that you're still a novice when it comes to using Saint Talismans. You don't know much about the power of Saint Talismans. Take this thing first and study it carefully." Yun was taken aback. Soon after, a jade strip flew out and landed in his palm. "That's all, I'll be leaving first." The voice in the void gradually weakened and eventually disappeared. "What is this?" Staring at the jade strip lying quietly in his palm, Zhuowen revealed a strange expression. What had happened today was really too strange. Or perhaps it was better to say that he was in the clouds. This is actually the basic usage manual for the Holy Talisman? When Zhuowen's mental energy entered the jade slip, his body trembled and his eyes were filled with excitement. Ever since he had obtained the Ice Flame Holy Symbol and the Incomplete Wind and Thunder Holy Symbol, Zhuowen had been trying to figure out how to use these two holy symbols. Of course, the way he used the sacred talisman was still very shallow and even crude. He knew that he had not grasped the correct way to use it. But now, the jade slip handed to him by the mysterious person who had suddenly emerged from the void actually mentioned the basic method of using the Saint Talisman. To him, this was like a timely rain that was extremely unexpected. "Brat, enter the Azure Dragon Palace first. There will often be people entering and exiting from the 9 secluded realms. If you are discovered, I'm afraid it will be terrible." Xiaohei suddenly reminded Zhuowen. Zhuowen nodded and immediately summoned the Azure Dragon Palace. He directly entered the square and at the same time, controlled the Azure Dragon Palace to sink to the bottom of the Sea of Bitterness. In the square, Yun held the jade slip in his right hand while Xiaohei stood on Zhuowen's shoulder, her small eyes filled with a grave expression. "Xiaohei, did you notice the specific appearance of the person in the void just now?" Zhuowen suddenly asked Xiaohei. Unexpectedly, Xiaohei shook her head and said, "That mysterious person in the void is a ruthless person. His cultivation is very terrifying. This dragon lord does not dare to use my mind to scan, otherwise I will definitely be discovered. Moreover, this person actually has the basic usage manual for the Holy Talisman. I'm afraid he should be the owner of another Holy Talisman." Zhuowen's pupils shrank and he could not help exclaiming, "The owner of another Holy Talisman? This was the first time he had seen the owner of another holy talisman. Of course, this time he had only heard that person's voice, but in any case, they had a certain level of interaction. Previously, when he had obtained a wisp of the Ice Fire Holy Talisman, Xiaohei had said that there were a total of 9 holy talismans in the Heavenly Armor Continent. The Ice Fire Holy Talisman was only one of them. Of course, he also had the incomplete half of the Wind and Thunder Holy Talisman. As for the remaining 7 holy talismans, one did not know much about them. "Xiaohei, this time you should tell me about the holy talismans, right?" Zhuan suddenly asked in a serious tone. Xiao He waved her hand and pointed at the jade slip. Don't ask me. This jade slip should have mentioned it. Take a closer look. Zhuan began to carefully read the contents of the jade slip with a skeptical heart. Then, his expression turned serious. As Xiao He had said, the jade slip did indeed have information about the 9 holy talismans. The 9 holy talismans were the Ice Fire Holy Talisman, Wind and Thunder Holy Talisman, Heavy Shield Holy Talisman, Spinning Thorn Holy Talisman, Eternal Holy Talisman, Prediction Holy Talisman, Blood Sacrifice Holy Talisman, King Blade Holy Talisman, and Beast Envoy Holy Talisman. Zhuan had the Ice Fire Holy Talisman and Wind and Thunder Holy Talisman, so there was no need to introduce their functions. The remaining 7 holy talismans had different abilities and extraordinary powers. The Heavy Shield Holy Talisman was the strongest defensive holy talisman. It could extract the hardest rock from the Earth's core and float it on the surface of the body, forming an impenetrable strong defense. The Spinning Thorn Holy Talisman could create endless gray vortexes. These gray vortexes could be used for both defense and attack. It was a holy talisman that emphasized balance. The Eternal Holy Talisman did not have any destructive power. Warriors who had such a holy talisman could attach a part of their soul to the holy talisman. As long as this part of the soul was not destroyed, the physical body could be revived without any restrictions. The Eternal Holy Talisman was similar to Jia Nan's Undying Armor Soul. However, the Eternal Holy Talisman was more perverted than the Undying Armor Soul. The Divination Holy Talisman, as the name suggested, could predict good or bad fortune, past life, present life, and future. However, the price was one's lifespan. In other words, each divination would consume one's lifespan. The price was very high. The Blood Sacrifice Holy Talisman was a powerful holy talisman that could use the blood of living beings. It had the ability to sacrifice one's blood to gain battle strength. The purer the blood, the more perverted the increase in battle strength. Killing an enemy would allow one to obtain a layer of the enemy's blood essence and cultivation. It was an extremely terrifying holy talisman. The King Blade Holy Talisman was the king of weapons and could control all weapons. However, only those who were obsessed with weapons could activate the King Blade Holy Talisman. The conditions were extremely harsh. The Beast Envoy Holy Talisman could control all meta beasts that were stronger than the user. At the same time, it had the effect of a forced contract. A forced contract could restrict meta beasts that were stronger than the user. If the user was strong enough, they could even tame sacred beasts. After reading the introduction of the various holy talismans, Yuan let out a sigh of relief. His eyes lit up. Only now did he realize that the 9 great holy talismans were not simple. Each of them had powerful functions. I wonder which of the 9 great saint talismans the mysterious person in the void has on his body. Why was he so enthusiastic about helping me perfect the Ice Fire Holy Talisman? Thinking of this, Yuan was even more puzzled. That mysterious man also said that when he needs you to return the favor, he will appear again. At that time, you will be able to meet again, and that guy's identity will be as clear as day, Blackie said faintly. That's true. Let me change my weapon first. Then, I will read the entire manual. Zhuan nodded and did not think too much about it. Since someone was trying to sell him a favor, there was no reason for him not to buy it. Zhuan re-entered the treasure repository and replaced the tiger head clear gold spear with a high-tier emperor artifact halberd. This was also to deceive others. After all, he had caused a ruckus in the Saint Martial sect. Many people had seen the tiger head clear golden spear. After leaving this time, he naturally could not bring the tiger head clear golden spear out again. After changing his weapon, Zhuan settled down to study the basic usage manual of the Holy Talisman. As time passed, Zhuan continued to study the manual. As he continued to study the manual, he discovered many unknown characteristics of the Holy Talisman. Of course, he was much more proficient in using the Holy Talisman than before. He spent a total of 3 months studying the manual. Although he had not reached perfection in the usage of the Holy Talisman, he was much more proficient in it than before. How to use the Holy Talisman to maximize the power of the Holy Talisman was the core of the manual. Due to the replenishment of the remaining ice and fire energy, the power of the ice and fire Holy Talisman in Zhuowen's body was much stronger than before. If the ice and fire energies were combined, the power that could erupt would definitely be extremely terrifying. There are still 3 months until the 9 Underworld Conference. I wonder if Father will participate? Zhuowen's eyes flickered. He used the communication jade charm to contact Long Xiaotian in the panicked Great World. After a while, the latter appeared on the square. Zhuowen, why are you looking for me? Long Xiaotian asked curiously. Father, do you plan to participate in the 9 Underworld Conference this time? Zhuowen suddenly asked. Long Xiaotian was startled. He immediately shook his head and said, I won't participate. Now that I have reached the peak of the profound sage realm, the saint luck of the 9 Underworld Conference won't be of much use to me. I won't compete with you. However, you can take Long Xiaotian with you. This little guy has already become a profound sage. He is now in the void profound sage realm. The saint luck should be of great use to him. Oh? Long Xiaotian? Then I will summon him and ask him what he wants. Zhuowen nodded and summoned Long Xiaoan to the square. Lord Zhuowen, may I know why you are looking for me? Long Xiaoyan knelt on one knee in front of Zhuowen and asked respectfully. Zhuowen helped Long Xiaotian up and said with a smile, We are all descendants of the Ryuka, so there is no need to be so reserved. This time, I summoned you to ask you if you plan to participate in the 9 Underworld Conference with me. Long Xiaotian immediately agreed. He had heard about the 9 Underworld Conference from Long Xiaotian. It was said that Saint Luck would appear here, which could promote profound sage realm experts to become profound sages. This thing was extremely precious. Well, then come with me to the 9 Underworld realm. Chapter 1463. 9 Nether Meeting. Ascending stairway before entering the Divine Spectre realm, Yuan had changed his appearance again and changed his name to Wenjue. As for Long Tian, because his surname was Long, Yuan naturally changed his name to Tian Long. At this moment, the Divine Spectre realm had many things to do. The Battle of the Saints back then had brought about quite a disaster to this small world. It had almost reached the point where there were whales everywhere. However, in the past year or so, the Divine Spectre Academy had implemented many remedial measures, causing the originally dilapidated Divine Spectre realm to have a brand new look. Zhuowen and Long Tian did not enter the Divine Spectre Academy. This time, they planned to participate in the 9 Nether meeting as rogue cultivators. Of course, they would go through the Divine Spectre realm. It is said that the 9 Nether Sky platform has been successfully completed. A month before the 9 Nether meeting, various stairways will be released in the 9 Nether realms, allowing the 9 Nether realm cultivators who want to participate to ascend the 9 Nether Sky platform. Not long after entering the Divine Spectre realm, Yuan heard the discussions of the cultivators passing by. Most of the topics revolved around the 9 Nether Sky platform. Yuan, what is the 9 Nether Sky platform? Long Tian asked curiously. The 9 Nether Sky platform is the location of the 9 Nether meeting this time. Zhuowen began to explain to Long Tian. Even though Zhuowen had already left the 9 Netherworld realm for a long time, his 2 clones were still in the 9 Netherworld realm, so he was naturally clearly aware of the great commotion that had occurred in the 9 Netherworld realm over the past year. The 9 Nether Sky platform was jointly built by the saints of the 9 Nether realms more than a year ago. The place where the 9 Nether Sky platform was built was the 9 Nether Heaven above the 9 Nether realms. In order to build the 9 Nether Sky platform, the planet-shaped 9 Nether realms were originally arranged in a straight line. Under the joint efforts of the saints, they were arranged in a circular shape. It was said that the saint luck this time also came from the depths of the 9 Nether Heaven. What was even more unbelievable was that someone from the Primal Chaos Temple had come this time. It was said that the person who came was a heavenly saint. This cultivator was brought by the profound Saint Master who stayed in the 9 Nether realm. Could it be that the people from the Primal Chaos Temple have already found the heavenly insect clone? Should I inform the Primal Chaos Temple of the whereabouts of the heavenly insect? Zhuowen's eyes flashed. He was well aware of the terror of the heavenly insect. Even if it was just a clone, if left alone, it would be a great disaster. Now that I'm in the 9th Netherworld realm, I'd better not act rashly. Since it's someone from the Primal Chaos Temple, I'm afraid that Heavenly Worm won't dare to act rashly. It won't be too late to inform him after the 9th Netherworld Conference. Currently, Jun was wanted by the entire 9 Netherworld realm. Moreover, if the people from the Primal Chaos Temple found out that he had an immortal sacred artifact on him, the first person they would capture would probably be him. Therefore, Jun did not dare to casually joke around with his life. Let's wait for 2 months first. After 2 months, the 9th Underworld Sky platform will release the 9th Underworld Sky stairway. At that time, we can go up together, Jun said to Long Tion. The latter naturally had no objections, so the two of them found a place to stay nearby and began to wait in peace. Perhaps it was because of the 9th Netherworld Conference, Jun discovered that the number of people in the Divine Nether Realm was much higher than usual. He could even see many powerful martial warriors on the streets. After all, the Divine Nether Realm was a small world with a huge territory. Naturally, there were many experts who kept a low profile. Now that the 9th Netherworld Conference was imminent, they naturally no longer kept a low profile. Instead, they took the initiative to participate in this 9th Netherworld Conference. 2 months slowly passed by. Finally, a black crack appeared in the sky of the Divine Nether Realm, and within that crack, a pure white jade staircase descended from the sky. This white jade staircase was very long, from the horizon all the way to the top of the mountain range at the end of the Divine Nether Realm. The staircase to the 9th Netherworld Sky platform has finally been released. That's the most famous mountain in the Divine Nether Realm, the Heaven Upholding Peak. It's near the Divine Academy. Let's go there quickly. The appearance of the white jade staircase immediately caused an uproar. Figures appeared everywhere in the Divine Nether Realm. They were densely packed like locusts. So many people. In an inn, Toan and Long Tion walked out. Looking at the countless figures in the sky, Long Tion was secretly speechless. Come, let's go. The two of them were also unwilling to fall behind. They followed the crowd and silently approached the Heaven Upholding Peak. At the bottom of the 9 peaks of the Divine Academy, a large group of disciples had already gathered. The 9 peak masters of the 9 peaks stood at the front of this group of disciples, as if they were waiting for something. So. 3 powerful figures flew over and floated in the air above the crowd. These 3 people were naturally Yanji, Jiangxian, and Wenbai. Among them, Yanji's face was still gloomy. Ever since the ice and fire energy of the Ice and Fire Dual Extreme Palace had been sucked away, the Ice and Fire Dual Extreme Palace had completely lost its tempering effect. Now, it had become a vase that could only be admired. Yanji secretly swore in his heart that if he met the fellow who took away the ice and fire energy, he would definitely not let him off easily. Let's go to the Heaven Upholding Peak. Yanji spoke and led the crowd into the air, flying towards the Heaven Upholding Peak not far away. In a short while, they arrived at the peak of the Heaven Upholding Peak. The Heaven Upholding Peak was quite large. In the center of the peak, the bottom of the white jade staircase was firmly connected to the peak without any gaps. At this moment, there were still few people on the peak. After all, the Heaven Upholding Peak was the closest to the Divine Academy. They only needed to fly a short distance to reach it. There's a restriction? Looks like it's not time to climb the sky staircase yet. Yanji came to the front of the staircase and discovered an invisible barrier in front of him. He frowned and muttered, "Then let's wait." Jiang Xian and Wenbai stood behind Yanji, waiting silently. So. As time passed, the sound of something breaking through the air could be heard. The other warriors of the Divine Nether Realm had all rushed over and landed on the peak. However, the position at the peak was very limited, and the number of warriors who came was extremely large, so the fight for the position at the peak began. Many of the weaker warriors were chased away by the stronger warriors who came later. There were even some vicious and merciless experts who directly took the lives of others, intimidating many people. The disciples of the Divine Academy stood quietly on one side, watching the fight on the other side. Their faces showed that they were used to seeing such a scene. They were the forces of the Divine Academy. Naturally, no one would be so blind as to challenge the authority of the Divine Academy. Come, let's enter the peak as well. Zhuan and Long Tian also arrived at the heaven-upholding peak. Although the fight on the peak was extremely intense, the two of them turned a blind eye to it. Hey, are the two of you looking to die? You actually dare to let him come up. An attack suddenly swept over, pouncing toward Zhuan and Long Tian. Zhuan's gaze turned cold. With a wave of his sleeve, the attack collapsed. The one who's looking to die is you, not me. After breaking the attack, Zhuan's gaze landed on a man around 30 years old. His cultivation was roughly at the high-level martial emperor realm. He could be considered above average among this group of people. Seeing how easily Zhuan broke his attack, the man knew that he had encountered a tough opponent. He hurriedly smiled and said, "That was a misunderstanding. Brother, feel free to come up." Misunderstanding? Sorry, I also misunderstood that you wanted to kill me. So, I plan to return the favor. Zhuan waved his sleeve, and a powerful force swept out, slamming into the man's body. Although the latter tried his best to resist, it was to no avail. He shattered into a cloud of blood mist. Zhuan's ruthless action caused many of the surrounding people to gasp. Then, no one dared to attack Zhuan and Long Tian. Zhuan's lips curled into a smile. He brought Long Tian to a secluded corner not far from Shan Academy. The reason why he killed so decisively was naturally to make an example out of them as soon as possible. More and more cultivators gathered at the mountain peak. In the end, the mountain peak became crowded, and the battles became more and more intense. However, with the arrival of the major forces of the Divine Spectre realm, the number of independent cultivators decreased. Instead, they were replaced by cultivators from other forces of the Divine Spectre realm. Among them, the Great Lei Temple had also come. What was strange was that the disciples of the Great Lei Temple were basically young monks with shaved heads. The leader was covered in Buddhist light, and he followed behind Master Xian Xing. That young monk is Buddhist, who has recently become famous. It is said that Buddhist cultivation has reached the half-step saint realm. He has inherited most of Master Xian Xing's legacy. He has also comprehended the extremely powerful law of karma. He is a terrifying opponent. When the Great Lei Temple descended on the mountain peak, it immediately attracted the attention of many people. Especially Buddhist, who was following behind Master Xian Xing, became the focus of everyone's attention. After Buddhist landed on the mountain peak, he casually looked around. His gaze finally landed on Zhuan, who was in a secluded corner. The corner of his mouth curled into a faint smile. Not many people knew that Buddhist was Zhuan's doppelganger. Other than Zhuan's close friends, only Yanji, Jiang Xian, Wenbai, and Xiao Yu knew about it. Even the Blue Dragon Hall's hall master, Sapphire Shore, did not know that Zhuan actually had two doppelgangers. If Sapphire Shore knew about it, he would definitely take the initiative to destroy Buddhist and demonic. Benefactors Yanji, Jiang Xian, and Wenbai, how have you been? After Master Xian Xing landed on the mountain peak, he slowly walked towards Yanji and the other two with a smile on his face. Master Xian Xing. Yanji and the other two did not dare to be negligent. They all returned the greeting and the four of them started to discuss in detail. Although Master Xian Xing's cultivation was not as high as Yanji's, he was much stronger than Jiang Xian and Wenbai. Therefore, Yanji and the other two had no choice but to treat him with caution. After all the major forces gathered at the mountain peak, the battle from before completely stopped. Many cultivators who were unable to occupy a spot could only hover outside the mountain peak, depressed, as they waited for the stairway to heaven to open. 9 Nether Gathering, Stairway to Heaven. Suddenly, a vast voice resounded from the 9 Nether sky. Shortly after, the restriction in front of the white jade stairway disappeared in an instant. Let's go. Let's climb the stairway to heaven. On the mountain peak, the eyes of all the disciples of the major forces lit up. Shortly after, they flew towards the stairway to heaven like locusts. Chapter 1464. The 9 Serenities Sky Platform. What a strange power! As soon as he stepped onto the stairs, Yun sensed a strange power coming from the top of the stairs. This power merged with his meridians like countless small bombs, exploding loudly, trying to turn his meridians into dust. However, Zhuan's cultivation was strong. He circulated his immortal energy and immediately resisted the power that was trying to enter his meridians. Suddenly, miserable cries came from the stairs below. Soon after, Zhuan noticed in astonishment that many of the martial practitioners who had just entered the stairs had directly exploded and died. Those below the high-level Great Emperor realm will die without a doubt if they climb the stairs to heaven. Another loud voice rolled down from the sky, causing Zhuo Wen's eyes to narrow slightly. It seemed that there was a limit to the stairs to heaven. Cultivators below the high-level Great Emperor realm couldn't withstand it at all. Let's continue climbing the stairs to heaven. No longer paying attention to the situation below, Zhuan and Long Tian made their way to the top in an orderly manner. They weren't too fast or too slow. Without a doubt, the disciples of the Fine Theology Academy and the Great Thunderclap Temple were far ahead of the rest of the cultivators. The stairs to heaven were close to 10,000 feet tall. High-level great emperors could barely reach the top. Is this Nine Serenities heaven? It's so dark as if nothing exists. The disciples of the Fine Theology Academy and the Great Thunderclap Temple were the first to reach the top of the stairs, followed by the other cultivators. When the crowd saw the scenery of Nine Serenities heaven, they were all shocked. Nine Serenities heaven was outside the Nine Serenities realm. It was an empty space. Most cultivators had never seen it before. Now that they were seeing it for the first time, they were naturally surprised and curious. Zhuan was among the crowd. He wasn't surprised. After all, he'd seen Nine Serenities heaven before. However, what surprised Zhuan was that the 9 planets floating in Nine Serenities heaven weren't arranged in a straight line like before. Instead, they were arranged in a ring. In the void at the center of the 9 planets stood an extremely vast white jade platform. The platform was tens of thousands of kilometers wide and was divided into several regions. Forests, swamps, mountains, rivers, and other natural landscapes were slowly displayed on the platform, just like a small world. The platform stood in the void, and 9 long white jade bridges extended from 9 directions of the platform, heading towards the direction of the 9 great netherworlds. The end of one of the long white jade bridges was the divine netherworlds. Look, it's a genius from another nether realm. On the square platform of the divine nether realm, many warriors were discussing animatedly as they looked towards the square platforms of the other nether realms. Zhuan was no exception. However, when his gaze swept across the 6 platforms, the Dragon Netherworld Realm, Martial Netherworld Realm, Killing Netherworld Realm, Death Netherworld Realm, Flower Netherworld Realm and Night Netherworld Realm, an extremely blazing coldness erupted from his eyes. The Saint Sovereigns of the 6 great netherworlds had once joined forces to snatch the Saint artifact from Zhuan. Moreover, they had also caused him to miss the opportunity to snatch back Muchinshua. Zhuan hated the 6 great netherworlds to the core. Very quickly, after Zhuan's gaze swept past the 6 great netherworlds, it landed on the square platform of the Demon Netherworld realm. On that square platform, there were powerful demon emperors gathered. The person leading them was a charming young woman. She wore a rather revealing armor and had a pair of cute furry cat ears on her head. A pair of dark golden pupils, however, carried a cold and detached look, keeping people 1,000 miles away from him. Many demon emperors in the Demon Netherworld realm looked at the young woman with reverence in their eyes. Behind this young woman stood 3 graceful figures. All 3 of them had peerless beauty, causing one's heart to tremble when they saw them. One of them was a girl with a pair of wings on her back. She was pure and lovely. As soon as she stepped onto the platform, her beautiful eyes scanned the square platform as if she was looking for something. However, after searching for a long time, the winged girl's beautiful eyes revealed a trace of disappointment. Does that Wu Dai? Looking at the winged girl who was looking around, Zhuan couldn't help but smile. Wu Dai's cultivation speed was rather fast. Her cultivation had also reached the half-step saint level. Coupled with her identity as a dark soul ice butterfly, her battle strength was definitely not simple. After retracting his gaze from the demon netherworld realm, Yuan landed in the direction of the desolate netherworld realm. On the square platform of the desolate netherworld realm, demonic aura soared into the sky. All the people gathered there were terrifying demonic cultivators. The billowing demonic aura danced like a group of demons, looking exceptionally ferocious. The leader of the desolate netherworld realm's deserted island was called Huang Imo. Demonic aura surged from his body as countless demonic shadows lingered around him. A terrifying demonic aura gushed out from Huang Mo's body. On the square platform, many demonic cultivators were dozens of steps away from Huang Imo. The atmosphere around Huang Imo was extremely cold and lonely. Of course, there were only 3 people who were like boulders following behind Huang Imo. One of them wore a ghost mask and carried a long black saber on his back. His eyes were slightly closed, and the demonic aura around him was extremely terrifying. Zhuan only glanced at the man with the ghost mask before his gaze fell on the other 2. Zhuan was naturally very familiar with these 2 people. They were his demonic doppelganger, Mo Wen, and the Lord of Tai Mo. When Zhuan had first joined the Divine Academy, his demonic doppelganger had followed the Lord of Tai Mo to the desolate netherworld realm to cultivate. Both of them were demonic cultivation geniuses. Not long after entering the desolate netherworld realm, they were noticed by the people of the deserted island and were carefully nurtured. Of course, Mo Wen's progress was the fastest. His reputation and cultivation were catching up to the number 1 genius of the deserted island, Gui Sha. Gui Sha was the guy with the ghost mask. I wonder who's hosting the 9 Underworld Conference this time? Zhuan's gaze fell on the Dragon Netherworld realm. He found that Sapphire Shore was still standing there calmly without any intention of moving. He couldn't help but be a little surprised. It was said that Sapphire Shore had personally hosted the 9 Underworld Conference in the past, but this time seemed to be a little different. Suddenly, 2 figures flew out from the center of the 9 Underworld Sky platform. These 2 figures weren't young, around 40 years old. One of them wore an arcane robe and was filled with powerful immortal qi. Without a doubt, he was an arcane saint master. The other person wore a green robe and had a goatee. His muscles were bulging, and his hands were behind his back. He looked around as if he was inspecting something. Greetings, everyone of the Eastern lands. I am Chao Rong, and I have received the order of the Chaos Temple to host the 9 Underworld Conference. I believe everyone will welcome me? Chao Rong said with a smile, which immediately attracted the attention of countless cultivators. He's actually sent by the Chaos Temple. I remember that the Chaos Temple is an extremely powerful force in the Middle Lands. However, such a force will soon interfere with the affairs of the other continents. Why are they interfering this time? Zhuan frowned slightly. The aura from Chao Rong's body was very powerful. Even Sapphire Shore in the Dragon Netherworld realm would have to think twice before facing Chao Rong. Zhuan guessed that Chao Rong was very likely a heavenly saint cultivator. As for what heavenly saint realm he was in, he wasn't very clear. He only knew that Chao Rong's aura might not be comparable to Zhou Tianzong's, but it wasn't far off. Chao Rong didn't wait for the crowd's reply and continued, I'm taking over the hosting of the 9 Underworld Conference this time with the approval of Hall Master Qing. Moreover, everyone knows that this 9 Underworld Conference is related to the quota to enter the Middle Lands. Of course, I will still mention a piece of good news. If any of you have good seedlings, I will accept you on behalf of the Chaos Temple and bring you back to the Chaos Temple. Whoosh! Chao Rong's words caused a huge uproar. The Chaos Temple's influence in the Middle Lands was very strong and deeply rooted. It was extremely difficult to join such a force. Even for the cultivators in the Middle Lands, it was extremely difficult to join the Chaos Temple. Unless you were a peerless monster, it would be very difficult to enter. But now, Chao Rong said that he might choose good seedlings in the 9 Underworld Conference and directly accept them into the Chaos Temple. This was definitely great news. Looking at the huge reaction around him, Chao Rong's lips curled into a smile as he continued, therefore, if you work hard, there's a chance of you being chosen by me. This sentence immediately caused the entire place to explode, and the clamor never stopped. Chao Rong's tone isn't small. Jun, who was in the crowd, was as calm as ever. He didn't feel any joy at all. All right, I won't waste any more time. Any cultivator below the age of 300 and above who is a high-level martial emperor can come to the 9th underworld heavenly platform on their own. As for the leaders of the various secluded realms, I'm afraid they can only watch from the square platform. For the sake of their own safety, the leaders of the various secluded realms should not attempt to enter the 9th underworld sky platform, Chao Rong continued. The leaders of the 9 secluded realms looked at each other and sighed softly. They stood where they were without moving and ordered their disciples to head to the 9 nether sky platform. Whoosh, whoosh. Sounds of breaking air rang out one after another. Immediately after, under the permission of the faction leader, the cultivators stepped onto the long white jade bridge in an orderly manner. Very quickly, a long stream of people appeared on the long white jade bridge. Yang, you little brat, go up first. Give everyone a good start. In Ciation Institute, Old Man Tiandu was glaring at the lazy figure not far away. Yang Yi shrugged and said, "Since you're sincerely begging me, then I'll reluctantly take the lead." As he spoke, Yang Yi stepped onto the long white jade bridge and walked towards the 9th underworld sky platform. Old Man Tiandu was so angry that his teeth were itching. What was Yang Yi saying? What he said just now wasn't a plea, it was an order. Following closely behind Yang Yi was Fu Yu of the Divine Devil Peak and the genius disciples of the other main peaks. After all the disciples of Ciation Institute had stepped onto the long white jade bridge, it was the Great Lightning Toon Temple's turn next. The rogue cultivators quietly waited at the back. They had no power or influence and could only be the last. This was the sorrow of rogue cultivators. Chapter 1465. Earth St. Luck. There were hundreds of thousands of 9 Nether Realm cultivators participating in the 9 Nether Conference. Apart from the elimination of nearly half of the 9 Nether Realm cultivators, most of the cultivators who were over 300 years old were eliminated during the White Jade Bridge segment. Only a few tens of thousands of people actually came to the 9 Netherworld platform. However, compared to the platform's enormous size, tens of thousands of people only occupied a small portion of it. Chao Rong quietly floated above the crowd and said expressionlessly, "The 9 Netherworld realms have their number 1 genius. Come out and let me see. Also, tell me your name." As soon as he finished speaking, the crowd looked at each other and 8 figures slowly walked out from the crowd. Dragon Netherworld Realms Qing Longzi. Divine Netherworld Realms Yang Yi. Flower Netherworld Realms Flower Fairy. Death Netherworld Realms Shuaishan. Killing Netherworld Realms Sha Zi. Night Netherworld Realms Yiksha. Desolate Netherworld Realms Gui Sha. Demon Netherworld Realms Yun Ran. Chao Rong nodded as he sized up these 8 figures, and he revealed a wisp of admiration as he said, "Not bad indeed. 5 of you have actually reached the Profound Saint Realm. 4 of you are at the Void Saint Realm, and 1 is at the Nirvana Saint Realm." As soon as these words came out, the crowd went into an uproar. Because the 8 people who came out had concealed their auras, the crowd couldn't see their cultivation. Now that Chao Rong pointed it out, the crowd couldn't help but be shocked. 5 of the 8 people had become saints. As expected of the top geniuses of the various Netherworld realms. Yen Ruhua, who was in the Blue Dragon Hall's team, pursed his lips. In fact, he also wanted to show off, but Chao Rong only asked the top geniuses of the 9 Netherworld realms to come out. He wasn't a genius of the 9 Netherworld realm, so he naturally wasn't qualified to come out. "You're Qing Longzi of the Blue Dragon Hall, right? You're not bad. I'm looking forward to your performance." Chao Rong deeply glanced at the indifferent Qing Longzi, and her words that were filled with deep meaning immediately attracted the attention of the surrounding people. Looks like Qing Longzi's cultivation is the highest among the crowd. Otherwise, Lord Chao Rong wouldn't specifically mention him. With Chao Rong's reminder, many people looked at Qing Longzi with reverence. The Profound Sage Realm was divided into 5 small realms, which were called the 5 Profound Sage Realms. They were the Profound Void Realm, the Nirvana Realm, the Profound Prying Realm, the Profound Purifying Realm, and the Profound Shattering Realm. Qing Longzi was obviously the one with the highest cultivation among the 5 that Chao Rong had mentioned, having reached the 2nd Profound Nirvana Realm. To be able to reach the Nirvana Saint realm at this age, Qing Longzi's talent was absolutely incomparably high. Of course, this was also inseparable from the Blue Dragon Hall's vigorous cultivation. Congratulations, Hall Master Qing. I didn't expect Qing Longzi to be able to advance to the Nirvana Saint realm. I'm afraid the champion of this 9 Nether Conference is already set in stone. In the past, the champions were basically all from the Blue Dragon Hall. This time should be no exception. As soon as Chao Rong finished speaking, the leaders of the other forces on the 9 platforms all cupped their hands and congratulated Sapphire Shore. It was obvious that they were trying to curry favor with him. Sapphire Shore slightly raised his chin. Although he repeatedly waved his hand and modestly said no, his eyes were full of pride. Sapphire Shore, this old fart, looks like he's invested a lot in Qing Longzi. He actually allowed him to advance to the Nirvana Saint realm. On the platform of the Divine Nether realm, Yen Ji frowned slightly. His eyes were full of displeasure. Don't the Eastern lands have the 9 Nether realms? Now that only 8 people have come out, where's the last one? Chao Rong suddenly said. As soon as these words came out, many of the surrounding cultivators had a strange look on their faces. Without a doubt, this Nether realm that hadn't appeared yet was the Martial Nether realm. What happened in the Martial Nether realm was spread throughout the 9 Nether realms. They all knew that the 3 direct disciples of the Saint Martial sect and the strongest disciple, Wu Zhantian, were killed in the Martial Nether realm. Even the Grand Elder of the Saint Martial sect, a Void Arcane Saint Realm Saint, was severely injured. It was extremely miserable. And all of this was said to have been done by Zhuan. Back then, Zhuan had fled pathetically under the joint attack of the 6 great saints. Now that he had returned, it was for revenge. The Saint Martial sect had undoubtedly become the first target of Zhuan's revenge. I'm the current number 1 genius of the Martial Nether realm. Suddenly, a somewhat timid voice came. Immediately, a young man in his 20s walked out from the Martial Nether realm's team. Perhaps feeling everyone's strange gaze, the young man hurriedly walked to the front. His eyes were on his nose and his nose was on his heart. He didn't dare to look at Chao Rong. This is the 9th level Emperor realm? Chao Rong's gaze froze. He looked at the timid young man with some surprise, but his heart was extremely strange. The number 1 geniuses of the other 8 Nether realms weren't powerful saints. They were at least half saints. However, the number 1 genius of the Martial Nether realm was only at the 9th level Emperor realm. Could it be that the Martial Nether realm was so weak? On the platform of the Martial Nether realm, Wu Ho's face was extremely ugly. Chao Rong's surprised words were like a ruthless slap to his face. However, he was also extremely helpless. After all, the 4 strongest geniuses of the sect had been killed by Zhuan. Even Wu Zhantian was dead. He couldn't bring out any more powerful disciples. That little bastard, don't let me see you again. If I see you, I'll make sure you die a horrible death. Wu Ho clenched his fists and said fiercely, Palace Master Qing, do you think that Zhuan will participate in the 9 Nether Conference? On the platform of the Dragon Nether realm, Elder Raiwa asked in a low voice. Sapphire Shore shook his head and said, that little bastard won't dare to come. Although his strength has indeed increased rapidly, what can a guy who hasn't become a saint do? That's right. Looks like we can only wait for the 9 Nether Conference to deal with that little bastard. Elder Raiwa nodded. Sapphire Shore smiled slightly. He had to eliminate Zhuan. However, he wasn't in a hurry because the 9 Nether Conference was very important to him. If the method that Skyworm mentioned works, perhaps I can really control the 9 Nether realm. Chao Rong and the profound Saint Master beside him walked to the eastern area of the platform. There were 3 huge circular platforms in this area. The platforms were connected to each other by iron chains. At the edge of the first platform, there were 9 stone pillars. There were many runes on the surface of the pillars that flickered with powerful energy. These energy lights gathered together to form a dark blue barrier. There were ripples on the surface of the barrier. On the second platform sat a rather majestic hall. This hall faintly revealed a trace of Saint Aura. It didn't look simple at all. The third platform was the largest, spanning 100 miles. There were 3,000 wooden pillars erected on it, each of which was dozens of feet tall. This is the first stage of the Nine Nether Conference. You all know that Saint Luck will appear in this Nine Nether Conference. I've named this first stage Saint Luck Birth. As the name suggests, Saint Luck will be born from this first stage. Chao Rong pointed at the 3 platforms as his loud voice continued to resound, reverberating in everyone's ears. Birth of Saint Luck? Everyone's eyes lit up. There was no doubt that their main purpose in participating in this Nine Nether Conference was Saint Luck. Saint Luck was extremely beneficial to those who had not yet entered the Saint Realm, as well as those who had just entered the profound Saint Realm. There are 3,000 Saint Pillars on the 3rd platform. At noon, Saint Luck will descend from the depths of the Nine Nether Heaven and be distributed among these 3,000 Saint Pillars. Of course, the distribution of the Saint Pillars is not equal. The earlier the Saint Pillars are, the more Saint Luck they can receive. If you want more Saint Luck, then reach the 3rd platform as soon as possible and snatch the Saint Pillars in front. Chao Rong's words were very concise, but it caused the eyes of many participants on the Nine Nether Heaven platform to burn. Gu Ning, go and activate the energy of these 3 platforms. Chao Rong instructed the profound Saint Master beside him. Gu Ning nodded and jumped up, standing above the 3 platforms. He took out origin crystals from his spirit ring, flipped his hands, and immediately began to construct an origin formation that enveloped the 3 platforms. In an instant, the 3 platforms seemed to come alive. Powerful energy soared into the sky and dissipated, causing the surrounding cultivators to feel a throbbing sensation. What powerful energy! Some cultivators' faces changed slightly. After Gu Ning's actions, the platforms were no longer as calm as before, and their auras were much more terrifying than before. You can start now. I have to remind you in advance that only 3,000 people can obtain Saint Luck, but there are tens of thousands of you. As for the 3rd platform, as long as the Saint Luck hasn't been born yet, you can use any method. Chao Rong smiled slyly. Obviously, his words were to remind everyone that fighting for the position of the Saint Pillars didn't prohibit any method, including snatching. Bush, bush. As soon as Chao Rong's voice fell, the sound of something breaking through the air rang out. Get lost! What are you doing? How dare you sneak attack me from behind? You're blocking my way. Before entering the platform, there were already many people who had begun to quarrel with each other. Some even started fighting because of it. Zhuan and Long Tian didn't get involved in this matter. The 2 of them quietly stepped onto the 1st platform. Zhuan and Long Tian naturally knew the principle of shooting the bird that pokes its head out, so their positions weren't very close to the front. The ones who were really far ahead were the top geniuses of the 9 Nether Realms and the other elite disciples. The first stage is very simple. You can pass by using brute force to break the energy barrier. Of course, the entrance and exit have to be broken once, so everyone has to break the energy barrier twice. Chao Rong said indifferently. Qing Longzi took the lead and blasted a hole in the energy barrier with his palm. With a swoosh he entered. Yen Ruhua followed closely behind, followed by the other top geniuses of the Nether Realms. However, the one who surprised everyone was Yang Yi of the Divine Nether Realm. Yang Yi was extremely lazy and walked slowly. Even so, Yang Yi's position was very close to the front, in the top 20. Long Tian, let's not stand out too much. This is only the first stage of the 9 Nether Conference. There's no need to expose too much. Zhuan transmitted his voice to Long Tian. Chapter 1466. The benefits of Saint Luck. That Qing Longzi is not bad. Most of the people are still on the 1st platform, but he's far ahead. He's already reached the 2nd platform. Chao Rong's eyes flashed as she muttered to herself. The energy barrier on the 1st platform was extremely tough. Most of the cultivators who reached the 1st platform were sent flying back with blood spurting out of their mouths when they punched the barrier. The slightly stronger warriors performed better. They used their special skills to constantly bombard the barrier. However, other than creating some ripples on the barrier, they were unable to break it. Only a small number of warriors were extremely powerful. With a single punch, they were able to create a hole in the energy barrier and successfully enter the first platform. As for the invincible Emperor Lords and half-saint cultivators of the 9 Serenity Realms, their speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, a hole as tall as a person had been created. Looks like there are many hidden geniuses in the 9 Serenity Realms. Hun and Long Tian barely broke the energy barrier. The moment they stepped onto the first platform, they were shocked to find that there were almost 100 people faster than them. Most of them were invincible Emperor Lords and half-saints. Terrifying geniuses like Qing Longzi, who was already a saint, had already reached the end of the second platform. Soon he would reach the third platform. Let's go! Yun and Long Tian didn't waste any time. Without exposing themselves too much, they also broke the exit of the first platform and crossed the cable bridge to reach the second platform. There was a large hall on the second platform. The surface of the hall was filled with Saint Aura. The front door was open, and it was pitch black inside. As soon as the two entered the hall, they heard a series of screams. Then, they were shocked to find that several high-level emperors ahead of them had mysteriously exploded and died. What's that? Long Tian frowned slightly, clearly confused. Let's go in and take a look, Zhuan said in a deep voice and walked into the depths of the hall. However, the moment Zhuan took a step forward, a dense sound of breaking air suddenly swept over. It was as if there were countless arrows exploding from the surroundings, piercing toward Zhuan's vital points. Zhuan's eyes narrowed as he took a few steps forward. Like a ghost, he dodged the countless sounds of the air being torn apart. At the moment when the last wave of air-piercing sound was heard, Zhuan touched it with his right hand and then reached out. He found that the air-piercing sound was actually a strange insect. This insect was about the size of a thumb. Its surface was covered with silver scales, and its mouth was as sharp as a needle. At this moment, the worm was lying in Zhuan's palm and kept twisting. Its sharp mouth pierced into Zhuan's flesh, trying to drill into Zhuan's body. However, this insect was obviously in vain. Zhuan now had a second-rate divine body. Even if he did not actively activate the power of the divine body, his body was far tougher than an ordinary warrior's. Zhuan crushed the insect into powder and said to Long Tian indifferently, "It's just a bunch of useless insects. Come with me." Long Tian nodded, jumped, and immediately followed Zhuan. Along the way, countless of these strange insects rushed over, wanting to drill into their bodies. However, they were all annihilated by Zhuan, allowing them to pass through the interior of the hall unimpeded. This scene stunned the people who came later in the hall. That guy actually used his body to resist the strange insects? I remember that a warrior from before, even if he took out a high-level defensive emperor weapon, it was useless. Could it be that these insects are strong in appearance but weak in reality? Let me try. One of the 7th-level Emperor Realm warriors who did not believe in heresy shouted and rushed out. However, before he could get far, countless air-piercing sounds flashed past. Then this warrior directly exploded and died. Suddenly, many warriors who gathered at the entrance of the hall and did not dare to move forward gasped. Walking out of the hall, Zhuan saw the third platform in front of him at a glance. There were wooden stakes erected upright there. At this moment, the first 500 wooden stakes had already been occupied. Zhuan and Long Tian leaped up and landed firmly on the 501st and 502nd wooden stakes, as steady as Mount Tai. Among them, the most eye-catching were undoubtedly the top 20 wooden stakes. Among them, Qing Longzi occupied the first wooden stake, Yan Ruhua was second, Yang Yi was third, and the desolate island Guisha was fourth. Then, the desolate island Zemowen was fifth, and Lu Hantian was sixth. What surprised Zhuan was that Lu Hantian had become a saint at some point. The saint aura that faintly leaked out was extremely terrifying. Zhuan's other clone, Buddha Wen, was on the 13th wooden stake. Wu Dai was on the 15th wooden stake, and Taimo Lord was on the 17th wooden stake. Among the top 20 wooden stakes, the Dragon Nether Realm occupied 4, the Divine Nether Realm had 3, the Desolate Nether Realm had 3, the Demon Nether Realm had 3, the Flower Nether Realm had 2, and the other Nether Realms had 1 each. However, the martial nether realm naturally did not have a single one. After all, the top geniuses of the martial nether realm had been completely wiped out by Zhuan. The two of them had no intention of fighting for the wooden stakes in front of them. Zhuan was very clear that this was only the first stage of the 9 nether meet. The amount of Saint Luck one obtained here did not have much to do with the amount of Saint Luck one obtained in the end. After all, the one who had the last laugh was the ultimate winner. Zhuan was very clear that the last few stages of the 9 nether meet were the most important ones. As time passed, many cultivators arrived one after another. After all, not every cultivator's speed was as fast as Qing Longzi's. Outside the 9 nether sky platform, the leaders of the 9 nether realms were all smiling. However, the martial nether realm's Wu Ho's face was extremely ugly. This was because their martial nether realm occupied very few spots among the 3,000 wooden stakes. Moreover, they were all at the back. There was no doubt that they would obtain very little Saint Luck. Damn that Zhuan! Wu Ho was filled with hatred. If it wasn't for Zhuan, their martial nether realm wouldn't be in such a sorry state. This time, there wasn't a single person in the top 100. It was simply too embarrassing. Especially when he saw the mocking gazes of the other nether realm leaders, Wu Ho wished that he could dig a hole and hide in it. It's almost noon. Everyone, please wait patiently. The Saint Luck is about to appear, Chao Rong said indifferently. When these words came out, many of the cultivators on the wooden stakes were extremely excited. Zhuan and Long Tian were no exception. However, after the excitement, Zhuan looked around and frowned slightly. This was because he couldn't sense any heavenly insect's aura among the 3,000 people. Logically speaking, the heavenly insect shouldn't have missed the 9 nether conference. Why can't I even sense a trace of its aura? Zhuan muttered to himself helplessly. Moreover, Zhuan also noticed that Chao Rong of the Primal Chaos Temple was also carefully sizing up everyone present. Although he looked indifferent, Zhuan could feel that Chao Rong was probably looking for something. It seems that the Primal Chaos Temple has really found traces of the heavenly insect. Otherwise, they wouldn't have sent a heavenly Saint Realm Saint and a profound Saint Master, Zhuan thought to himself. Although Zhuan really wanted to tell Chao Rong that the heavenly insect avatar was being protected by the Blue Dragon Hall, he didn't dare to do so now. After all, the immortal saint artifact on him was too attractive to many people. At that time, before he could say anything about the heavenly insect, he would get into trouble instead. The gains would not make up for the losses. In fact, what he was most worried about now was that after 5 years, he didn't know how strong the heavenly insect had become. It's noon. Chao Rong's resounding voice suddenly rang out. Immediately, the 3,000 cultivators on the wooden stakes all raised their heads, their eyes filled with excitement. Even the lazy-looking Yang Yi raised his head as a playful smile appeared in his eyes. Boom! A dazzling golden light shot out from the depths of the 9 nether heaven. This golden light was very strange. Even the pitch-black 9 nether heaven was dyed an endless golden color by this golden light. The golden light shot out very quickly and instantly reached the sky above the 9 nether sky platform. Is this Saint Luck? Zhuan muttered softly as he looked at the golden light that had almost dyed the entire 9 nether heaven golden. However, his gaze wasn't on the golden light, but on the depths of the 9 nether heaven where the golden light had come from. How exactly was this so-called Saint Luck born in the endless void? Zhuan was very curious. Boom! Endless golden light spread across the sky above the 9 serene sky platform. Soon after, it suddenly exploded and turned into rays of golden light. At the same time, the surface of the wooden stakes on the 3rd platform lit up with complicated runes. The power of the runes soared into the sky like a giant hand, sucking the countless rays of golden light into the wooden stakes. The wooden stake Zhuan was on also surged with rune power. Moreover, Zhuan discovered that the closer to the wooden stake, the stronger the rune power was, and the more rays of golden light it could absorb. The rune power quickly returned, bringing with it a ray of golden light. The rune power returned to the wooden stake, and the golden light surged into Zhuan's body. After that, Zhuan discovered that as the golden light poured into his body, his comprehension of the laws in his body was suddenly enlightened. The doubts he had about the laws in the past were completely dispelled at this moment, as if he had entered a state of enlightenment. Is this the effect of Saint Luck? Zhuowen's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. No wonder everyone said that Saint Luck could help one become a saint. So this was the case. When the Saint Luck poured into his body, it could actually deepen his comprehension of the laws in his body. As his comprehension of the laws deepened, it naturally wouldn't be difficult for him to break through to the saint realm. After all, breaking through to the saint realm only required an opportunity, and this opportunity was to have a deep enough comprehension of the laws and be able to master it. This trace of Saint Luck isn't enough. If I can obtain more Saint Luck, perhaps my comprehension of the laws will be several times, dozens of times, or even hundreds of times more profound than it is now. Chapter 1467. Seizing Saint Luck. After obtaining the benefits of Saint Luck, Zhuowen's thirst for Saint Luck increased. He knew that as long as he could gather more Saint Luck, his chances of becoming a saint would increase. Not only Zhuowen, but the other cultivators who had obtained Saint Luck also looked greedy. They glanced at the other cultivators as if they were looking at prey. Boom! Boom! Suddenly, dozens of light pillars shot up into the sky continuously from the wooden stake. The aura emitted by these light pillars was extremely vast and terrifying. Someone has broken through. Many cultivators on the wooden pillars were astonished. They raised their heads and looked at the dozens of people who had rushed out of the light pillars. It seems that the Saint Luck has allowed these people to comprehend cosmic energy. They're probably going to break through to the Great Emperor realm. Zhuowen glanced at the dozens of people. Without exception, they were all ninth-layer Great Emperors. They hadn't comprehended cosmic energy. However, the power of Saint Luck had allowed them to comprehend the mysteries of cosmic energy. They had broken through to the Great Emperor realm. Cosmic energy is descending from the sky. It seems that the breakthrough is going to end soon. Someone exclaimed. Indeed, dozens of cosmic energy had descended from the sky. Most of them were elemental cosmic energy. However, there were two people who attracted the attention of many people. These two people didn't comprehend elemental cosmic energy, but special cosmic energy. One of them was a young man in his early 20s. The cosmic energy above his head contained a destructive qi. The cosmic energy he comprehended was the same as Fu Yu of the Divine Devil Peak of the Excellent Divine College. It was also the law of destruction. The destructive qi it contained was terrifying. The other person had countless sword shadows above his head. These sword shadows revealed an incomparably sharp qi. It was a special sword cosmic energy. Looking at these two people, Zhuowen smiled. These two people were his old friends. The one who comprehended the law of destruction was Jia Nan, and the one who comprehended the law of sword was Mo Lingtian. In the past few years, the two of them had improved very quickly, especially Mo Lingtian. Although he was talented at the beginning, there was still a gap between him and Jia Nan and Gatha. However, Mo Lingtian didn't fall behind Jia Nan because of his talent. Instead, he was on par with Jia Nan. They were both ninth-layer Great Emperors. Now, because of the Saint Luck, he had comprehended cosmic energy and become a Great Emperor realm expert. As for Moyan Wushang and Jia Sha, their cultivation was much higher than Jia Nan's and Mo Lingtian's. They had already reached the half-saint realm. Jia Sha's cultivation was originally the lowest among them, but now she had surpassed the others and become the strongest. Qin Yin didn't participate in this 9 Netherworld conference because her cultivation was stuck at the peak of the 6th-layer Great Emperor realm. Until now, she hadn't broken through to the high-level Great Emperor realm. She wasn't even qualified to climb the heavenly stairway, let alone obtain Saint Luck. The dozens of people who had comprehended the law of Saint Luck were envied by many people, especially those who couldn't reach the 3rd platform and were eliminated. Their hearts were bleeding. Everyone who has obtained the Saint Luck should have tasted the benefits of the Saint Luck, right? Chao Rong stood in the sky, the corners of his mouth slightly raised as he said indifferently. The people standing on the wooden pillars all nodded their heads as an additional fervent look appeared in their eyes. Even Qing Longzi, who was standing on the first wooden pillar, had a trace of fervent look in his eyes. This is only the first stage. The second stage is to increase your saint luck. Now, follow me. After Chao Rong finished speaking, he and Guning stepped into the sky and flew towards the west. The 3,000 cultivators standing on the wooden pillars looked at each other, then immediately flew down the wooden pillars and followed closely behind. The saint luck from the depths of 9 netherworld heaven had all been shared by them. Naturally, they wouldn't stand on the wooden pillars like idiots anymore. The western region was thousands of miles wide, and it was filled with many different landscapes. There were deserts, plains, forests, and mountains. It was a small natural world. Chao Rong and Guning floated in the air above this natural world. The 3,000 cultivators behind them also stopped behind the two of them, staring at the natural world below in amazement. What was strange was that there were actually 30 huge arenas in this natural world. The arenas were distributed quite evenly. There were arenas in deserts, plains, forests, and mountains, and the landscape of each arena was different. There are 30 arenas in this natural world. Each arena is extremely wide. There are 3,000 of you, so if you divide them evenly, there will be 100 people in each arena. The rules of the second stage are actually very simple. That is the arena point system. Each of you has an initial score of 1 point. Every person you defeat will add 1 point, and every defeat will deduct 1 point. The result is that the points will be ranked from highest to lowest, and the top 100 will advance to the next round. Chao Rong said indifferently. The 3,000 cultivators nodded repeatedly. The rules of the points ranking were obviously quite fair. After all, it was obviously unfair to use a 2-on-1 elimination system in the arena battles. After all, if two powerful geniuses were to encounter each other in advance, one of them would definitely be eliminated. This was not beneficial to the progress of the arena battles. However, the points system was much better. It didn't matter even if one lost a match. As long as one's total score was in the top 100, they wouldn't be eliminated. This rule was obviously more advantageous to the stronger geniuses. Everyone should have no objections to the rules, right? Chao Rong said indifferently. The 3,000 cultivators looked at each other, but no one spoke. Obviously, there were no objections. In that case, let's start drawing lots. The 30 arenas have their own numbers, from 1 to 30. Whichever number you draw, you will go to that arena. After Chao Rong finished speaking, he waved his sleeve. Suddenly, countless light sticks flew out from his hand and landed in the hands of the 3,000 cultivators. Zhuan flipped his right hand and the number 7 was written on the light stick in his hand. Looks like it's arena number 7, Zhuan thought to himself. Everyone should know your own number, right? Now, let's go to our respective arenas. As soon as Chao Rong finished speaking, the 3,000 cultivators flew out and entered the natural world to find their respective arenas. Arena number 7 is over there. Zhuan's eyes immediately locked on an arena in the depths of the forest. He kicked his right foot and rushed toward the depths of the forest like a streamer. There was a large open space in the depths of the forest. On the open space, there was an arena made of green mound stone. At this moment, there was a large number of cultivators gathered below the arena. Obviously, they had all drawn lots to be placed in arena number 7. Zhuan did not attract anyone's attention when he landed below the arena. As for Long Tian, who was beside him, he had drawn arena number 9, which was in the adjacent desert. The top geniuses of the 9 netherworld realm also landed below their respective arenas. Among them, Qing Longzi was in arena number 1, Yang Yi in arena number 2, Yan Ruhua in arena number 3, Lu Hantian in arena number 4, Flower Fairy in arena number 5, Mo Wen in arena number 6, Shuasia in arena number 7, Sha Zi in arena number 8, Yaksha in arena number 9, Yun Ran in arena number 10, and Gui Sha in arena number 11. Zhuan paid more attention to Wu Dai in arena number 15, Fo Wen in arena number 17, Mo Yen Wushang in arena number 20, and Gatha in arena number 21. Generally speaking, those with higher strength would be assigned to different arenas. Obviously, this was deliberately arranged by Chao Rong. Although this natural world was extremely large and Zhuan's arena number 7 was in the depths of the forest, the cultivators present were not weak. They were all cultivators at the peak of the 9 netherworld realm. With their eyesight and mental energy, they could naturally see the entire natural world. The situation of the other arenas was no exception. Many of the martial warriors below the 7th arena looked at one of the figures standing proudly with fear in their eyes. This person was a 29-year-old man wearing a black windbreaker. His hair was very long, almost reaching his waist. His eyes contained a trace of deathly stillness. This person was the number 1 genius of the nether realm, Shuai. The aura on his body was as vast as the sea, but it contained a deathly stillness, as if this person was a dead man. The other cultivators in the 7th arena kept a distance from him, not daring to get too close. In addition to the fear in their hearts, it was also the influence of the faintly discernible deathly stillness. Shuai raised his chin slightly. His gaze was not on the other cultivators in the 7th arena, but on the top geniuses in the other arenas. He knew very well that in the 7th arena, he was the king. No one could beat him. His real opponents were the top geniuses of the 9 netherworld realm. This arena battle is also related to how much Saint Luck you have in your body. If you win, in addition to gaining 1 point, you can also take a part of your opponent's Saint Luck and integrate it into yourself. Therefore, I prefer to call this stage Seizing Saint Luck. Chao Rong's voice rang out once again, reverberating throughout the space. This caused the originally quiet warriors to burst into an uproar. After tasting the great benefits of Saint Luck, their desire for it was like a hungry wolf that had seen its prey. It can actually take away Saint Luck. This is not bad. Shuai was also moved. His gaze fell on the other cultivators in the 7th arena for the first time. However, his eyes were not filled with the joy of meeting an opponent, but with the greed of seeing prey. There was no doubt that he regarded the other 99 cultivators in the 7th arena as prey that could devour Saint Luck. I've been treated as prey. What a failure. Jun licked his lips and sneered in his heart. Shuai regarded the others as prey, but he did not know that he had already been targeted by Jun. The second stage of Seizing Saint Luck is about to begin. My clone will be the referee in your arena. Chapter 1468. Arena Competition 1 split into 30. Seeing Chao Rong display this move, many martial artists' eyes were moved. At their level of cultivation, creating clones was not considered a rare secret technique. However, to be able to create 30 clones at once was a little powerful. This Chao Rong was indeed a heavenly saint-level powerhouse. The 30 clones landed on the 30 arenas. Chao Rong was expressionless and his gaze was cold. On the 7th arena, Chao Rong glanced at the remaining martial artists below the arena and continued, "Before the competition begins, I will give you a number." As he spoke, Chao Rong waved his sleeve and 100 light spots appeared. The light spots landed on Zhuowen's chest and the number 15 appeared on his chest. "I will decide your opponent. I will draw lots to pair you up." The first round, number 1 versus number 75. Just as Chao Rong finished speaking, 2 young men flew out from below the arena. The 2 of them looked at each other cautiously as the origin energy in their bodies surged. The 2 of them weren't weak. They were both around the 8th Heaven Emperor realm. "Begin," Chao Rong announced indifferently. Immediately, light spots shot out from the glabella of the 2 of them as they activated their respective armor souls. From their attire, one could tell that one of them should be a core disciple of the Divine College while the other should be a disciple of the Blue Dragon Hall. Both of them had similar cultivation levels. Naturally, they wanted to end the battle quickly from the start and use their strongest trump cards. Otherwise, it would be a waste of energy if the battle dragged on. After all, there were still many battles to be fought. Boom, boom, boom. The 2 of them quickly launched their attacks. Powerful shockwaves from the collision affected the entire space around the arena. After dozens of exchanges, the disciple of the Fine Divine Academy was slightly inferior. The disciple of the Azure Dragon Hall found an opening and punched out, heavily smashing into the chest of the Fine Divine Academy disciple. The disciple of the Divine College spat out a mouthful of blood and flew out with a groan. Victory for number 1. Chao Rong was expressionless. Just as he finished speaking, a ray of light shot out from the defeated disciple of the Divine College and entered the body of the Blue Dragon Hall's disciple. Due to the golden ray of light, the disciple of the Blue Dragon Hall clenched his fists and looked excited. A golden light spot started to appear between his glabella. Zhuan looked at the scene and pondered. The moment the Divine College's Blue Dragon Hall's disciple, he could feel the saint aura from the Blue Dragon Hall's disciple became more obvious and stronger. That was the effect of the saint luck. On the other hand, the saint luck of the disciple who had failed was extremely dim. It was obvious that most of his saint luck had been taken away by the Azure Dragon Hall disciple. The eyes of Shueizhe, the strongest person in the 7th arena, lit up like never before. He murmured, "Stealing saint luck?" Studio number 15. After a battle ended, Chao Rong spoke again. Zhuowen took a step forward and directly leaped onto the arena. At this moment, on the other side of the stage, a man who looked to be in his 30s also jumped onto the stage. A disciple of the League of Assassins? Zhuowen looked at the kill word on the man's chest and immediately knew that this man was a disciple of the League of Assassins. When Zhuowen was attacked by the 6 saints, he had used his demon Dao doppelganger to investigate the situation of the other secluded realms. He had a good understanding of the various secluded realms. The strength of the disciple of the League of Assassins was only at the 8th level Great Emperor realm. In the League of Assassins, he could only be considered above average. "You've concealed your cultivation?" As soon as the man came up, he realized that he couldn't see through the cultivation of the young man in front of him. "Begin." Chao Rong glanced at Zhuowen because even he couldn't sense the specific cultivation of the young man in front of him. However, he was sure that the young man in front of him had not reached the Saint Realm. What an interesting young man. It seems that his concealment secret technique is quite advanced. Even I can't see through it. Chao Rong thought to himself. However, he didn't pay too much attention to it. After all, there was a huge difference between a Saint Realm cultivator and a Saint Realm cultivator. Although Zhuowen's concealment secret technique wasn't bad, his main focus was on the few geniuses who had become saints. "Remember my name. I'm Wei Han. Otherwise, you won't know who killed you when you go to hell." After saying that, Wei Han released his armor soul. He was very cautious. Although he knew that Zhuowen had used a concealment technique, he didn't dare to be careless. His armor soul was a cloud of black mist. As soon as the cloud of black mist appeared, it attached itself to his body. Then, Wei Han's aura became indistinct and he immediately disappeared from the spot. So fast. Although Wei Han's cultivation is only at the 8th level Great Emperor realm, his assassination technique is probably a threat to a 9th level Great Emperor realm cultivator. Below the arena, many cultivators revealed looks of amazement. Clearly, Wei Han's performance was quite stunning. Another air-rending sound rang out. Behind Zhuowen, a cloud of black mist suddenly spread out. Then, a right hand holding a dagger directly swept toward Zhuowen's neck. Zhuowen remained as still as a mountain. When the dagger was about to reach him, he only threw out a light punch. He did not use any cultivation method or martial arts. He did not even use any secret techniques. It was just a simple and unadorned punch. This guy is too arrogant. He didn't even use a technique. On the stage, many cultivators secretly shook their heads. Even Chao Rong had a mocking look on his face. When the punch was thrown out, the sound of bones cracking could be heard. Then, a heart-wrenching scream came from the cloud of black mist. Wei Han actually held his right arm as he retreated and landed outside the arena. However, just as Wei Han was about to land outside the ring, Zhuowen's right hand hooked and grabbed Wei Han's right hand like an eagle's claw. Then, his left fist, which had been accumulating power, flew out with a rumble. Poochie! The punch landed on Wei Han's chest. Suddenly, Wei Han spat out a mouthful of blood. His body collapsed and turned into a cloud of blood mist. As soon as Wei Han died, the saint luck on his body seemed to have lost its owner and rushed to Zhuowen's body. At the same time, a golden dot of light appeared between Zhuowen's eyebrows. Since Wei Han was a disciple of the League of Assassins and had threatened to kill him, Yun naturally wouldn't show any mercy. Of course, As long as it was a disciple of the Blue Dragon Hall, 100 Flowers Park, Undying Altar, League of Assassins and Yakshasi, Yuan wouldn't let any of them go. Especially Shueisha, who was the strongest person on the 7th stage, Yuan wouldn't let him go. Looking at Wei Han, who had died without an intact corpse, many people sucked in a breath of cold air as they stared at Zhuo Wen in fear. Who is this guy? He's so ruthless. He actually killed him. Chao Rong's eyes were calm. Before the battle began, he didn't say anything to stop Shueisha from killing. Shueisha, who was standing quietly at the same spot, narrowed his eyes and took another look at Zhuo Wen. A cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. The battle continued. It was inevitable that there would be some casualties in this kind of battle. In addition, Chao Rong didn't forbid killing, so the battle was extremely intense. Among the many stages, the most ruthless battle was in the 6th stage. The strongest person on this stage was Mo Wen from the Barren Island. Most of the time, Mo Wen would take someone's life. However, if one looked carefully, they would see that Mo Wen's targets were very regular. Basically, he would choose the disciples of the Blue Dragon Hall, Undying Altar, 100 Flowers Park, League of Assassins and Yakshasi. Of course, because there were 5 forces, no one paid too much attention to it. Not only Mo Wen, but Mo Wen from the Great Leiyin Temple, Mo Lingtian, Jianan, Gatha, Mo Yen Wushang and even Lu Hantian from the Saint Physique all had the same goal. They were all targeting the disciples of the 5 major forces. As the competition continued, the leaders of the 5 major factions finally realized that something was amiss. This was because in their respective factions, other than a few top and elite disciples, the other weaker disciples were all dead. Looks like the disciples of the Jiashan Academy have a good relationship with Zhuan. They actually dared to kill the disciples of the Blue Dragon Hall. Sapphire Shore said with a slightly ugly expression. I heard that Yen Ji's new disciple, Lu Hantian, has the saint physique and has already become a saint. He's very powerful. This guy is the one who killed the most crazily. Moreover, he seems to be targeting the disciples of the Blue Dragon Hall. Elder Raiwa said indifferently, they're all little bastards related to Jun. Sapphire Shore quickly calmed down. The people that Lu Hantian and the others killed were all unimportant characters of the Blue Dragon Hall. It wasn't a pity that he died. If possible, he would send a sound transmission to Qing Longzi. At that time, if he encountered these people, he wouldn't be merciful and would kill them all. Also, the Mo Wen on the deserted island seems to be targeting the 5 major forces. Raiwa looked at the Mo Wen on the 6th stage with some doubt and frowned. Sapphire Shore didn't think too much about it and said indifferently, Mo Wen has always been unscrupulous. They kill whenever they want. The Mo Wen's Mo Chi is monstrous and unruly. I'm afraid it's normal for him to kill his opponents. Number 85 against number 32. On the 7th stage, Chao Rong shouted again. Shueisha suddenly jumped up and landed on the stage. It's Shueisha from the Undying Sacred Altar in the Netherworld realm. His cultivation is at the half-step saint realm. He's very powerful. When Shueisha went up, it immediately caused an uproar in the crowd. They were chattering like little birds and looked at Shueisha's opponent with pity. I give up. Shueisha's opponent was a rogue cultivator. He frowned and immediately gave up without even fighting. After he gave up, a part of his saint luck suddenly separated and entered Shueisha's body. After Shueisha's battle ended, it was finally Zhuowen's turn. Number 15 Wen Zhuo against number 37 Lu Yang. Chapter 1469. Bombardment. Following that, Yun won extremely easily. He basically didn't use any moves. When others attacked, he just threw out a punch and destroyed all of their attacks. Soon, Zhuon obtained 50 consecutive victories. This Wen Zhuo's physical body is really impressive. Until now, I haven't seen him use any techniques, armor soul, or other techniques. Below the stage, many martial warriors looked at Zhuo Wen's back with fear in their eyes. Originally, Wen was unknown, and no one even noticed him. However, as the battles continued, everyone finally noticed Zhuo Wen's extraordinariness. Especially Zhuo Wen's physical body, it was the topic of everyone below the arena. In addition, Yun sometimes didn't show any mercy. Therefore, after 50 victories, many cultivators who met Zhuowen directly forfeited. Of course, those who forfeited were basically cultivators with strength below the invincible sovereign lord level. Among the 100 people in the 7th arena, most of them had this strength. There were only 5 people whose strength was above the invincible sovereign lord level. Shueisha was one of them, and he was a half-saint. Other than Shueisha, there was another person who was a rogue cultivator without a sect. As for the other 3, 2 of them were core disciples of the Blue Dragon Hall, Wu Lan and Zheng Tang. The other person was a disciple of the League of Assassins, Shi Yi. Among the 5 people, other than the rogue cultivator without a sect, the other 4 were all staring at Zhuowen with unfriendly gazes. This was because during the competition, many of their senior and junior brothers had been killed by Zhuowen with a single punch. When Chao Rong reported to Zhuowen again, Zhuowen threw out another punch and directly blasted his opponent out of the arena. The result was as expected, clean and neat. Following that, Zhuowen continued his winning streak. After winning over 70 matches in a row, he finally met a heavyweight opponent. The golden light on Zhuowen's forehead became even more intense. Gradually, it condensed into a golden pattern. The golden pattern rushed up to the sky like a golden sword. In the 7th arena, only Shueisha and the other 4 had also condensed golden runes. This was especially true for Shueisha. The golden rune between his eyebrows was extremely bright, and there were signs of it forming a second golden rune. Wu Lan stood quietly on one side of the stage, staring at Shun. She sneered and said, "I finally met you. I saw that you had a great time killing our Blue Dragon Hall's disciples. You killed them all with a single punch. If you have the ability, why don't you try killing me with a single punch?" As she spoke, Wu Lan's gaze was filled with provocation. Everyone below the arena shook their heads inwardly. This Wu Lan was an invincible emperor lord and had grasped a type of law power. He wasn't someone an ordinary martial artist could compare to. Although Wenju's strength was strong enough, killing an invincible emperor lord with a single punch was too exaggerated. Unless he was a half-saint, it was impossible to do so. Shueisha and the other 3 invincible martial emperors also had a mocking look in their eyes. Even Chao Rong had a look of interest on her face. Speaking of which, up until now, Wenju had only used a single punch to kill his opponent in every battle. Other than when his opponent admitted defeat, he had never used a second move. "Do you think you're qualified for me to use a second punch?" Zhuowen said indifferently. Then he threw out another punch. However, what the crowd didn't notice was that on the surface of Zhuowen's fist, there were traces of golden veins. He had used a trace of the Saint Physique's power. Well, he had only used a single punch. Below the arena, the crowd was in an uproar. Zhuowen's words were too arrogant. If Zhuowen was facing an ordinary high-level Emperor realm martial artist, they wouldn't be surprised if he only used a single punch. But now, Wenju's opponent was an invincible Emperor Lord, and he only planned to use a single punch. Wasn't he too arrogant? As the referee, Chao Rong's eyelids twitched. He was extremely surprised. Facing an invincible Emperor Lord, Wenju only used a single punch. Either there was something wrong with his head, or Wenju was extremely confident in his own strength. The smile on Wu Lan's face froze, as if he had been slapped hard in the face. His provocative words were naturally a joke. He didn't think that Wenju would only use a single punch to deal with him. But now, Wenju still only used a single punch. It was undoubtedly a slap to his face. How arrogant! Let's see how arrogant you can be after I beat you to the ground. Wu Lan was so angry that he laughed. A violent wind swept up around him, and the wind grew stronger and stronger. In the end, it soared into the sky and parted the dark clouds. Junior brother Wu Lan has mastered the law of wind. This law can be used for both offense and defense. It's quite powerful. At the same time, Zheng Tang, a disciple of the Blue Dragon Hall, crossed his arms and sneered. Wind Dragon. The moment the law of wind swept out, Wu Lan flipped his hands. Suddenly, a violent storm swept up a huge wind dragon. With a roar, it swept towards Zhuowen. Boom! Zhuowen still used a single punch. Without any changes, his fist landed on the wind dragon. Immediately, the seemingly terrifying wind dragon collapsed inch by inch. Zhuowen's fist didn't lose its momentum. It continued to sweep forward and heavily smashed into Wu Lan's chest. No! Wu Lan let out a blood-curdling scream. This seemingly light punch, when it landed on his body, seemed to contain the force of 1,000 caddies. Then, his internal organs began to overturn. His physical body began to rupture as a bloody mist burst out and exploded with a rumble. Swoosh! The moment Wu Lan died, the golden rune between his eyebrows separated and fell on Zhuowen's body. Then, a golden light flashed between Zhuowen's eyebrows. Finally, a second golden rune was derived. A powerful saint aura flowed out of Zhuowen's body. Saint Luck! Zhuowen closed his eyes and felt the benefits brought by the Saint Luck. He began to have a new level of comprehension of the 5 laws of ice, fire, void, desolation, and death in his body. Not enough, I need more Saint Luck. Zhuowen shook his head, a trace of greed in his eyes. Although with the help of the Saint Luck, his understanding of the 5 laws in his body had deepened, but there was still a distance to the opportunity for a breakthrough. The entire arena became incomparably silent. Everyone stared blankly at Wu Lan, who had exploded into countless blood mist. Their mouths were agape, but no words came out. As the referee, Chao Rong couldn't help but be stunned. One punch, this kid really killed Wu Lan with one punch. There wasn't even a trace of him left. How can there be such a terrifying physical body in this world? The strength of the physical body can withstand the power of the laws? Chao Rong thought in his heart, but his eyes were fixed on Zhuowen. He found that the young man in front of him gave him a feeling that he couldn't see through him. Of course, he was also getting more and more interested. Bastard, you actually killed junior brother Wu Lan? You're simply courting death. Zheng Tang, who was sneering, completely froze. He stared at Zhuowen with a ferocious expression. Idiot! If you have the ability, come up and avenge your junior brother, Zhuowen said indifferently. Zheng Tang immediately fell silent. He was also an invincible sovereign lord. Although he was Wu Lan's senior brother, his strength wasn't that high. If Wenjue could kill Wu Lan, then naturally he could also kill him. Interesting. Looks like Wenjue's cultivation should be at the half-saint level. Otherwise, it's impossible for him to kill Wu Lan so easily. Shueizhi frowned. He was also at the half-saint level. It wasn't difficult for him to defeat and kill Wu Lan. However, it was a little difficult for him to kill Wu Lan with one punch like Zhuowen. Thinking of this, Shueizhi began to take Wenjue seriously for the first time. Crack! Sapphire Shore clenched his right hand, producing a cracking sound. He stared at the 9th underworld sky platform with a dark gaze. Wu Lan's death on the 7th ring naturally attracted Sapphire Shore's attention. Wu Lan was an invincible sovereign lord. Even in the Blue Dragon Hall, such a genius disciple could be counted with 2 hands. It wasn't easy to nurture one. Who is that kid? I remember that kid from the 7th ring also tried to kill the disciples of our Blue Dragon Hall, right? Sapphire Shore asked the higher-ups of the Blue Dragon Hall behind him. According to the information from the 7th ring, his name seems to be Wenjue. Similar to those from the Fine Gods Institute, he also seems to be targeting the disciples of the 5 major powers. This kid's actions are very suspicious. Moreover, it's said that he's a rogue cultivator, one of the old men said respectfully. Sapphire Shore's eyes slowly narrowed as he muttered to himself, his name is Wenjue? And he's targeting the disciples of the 5 major powers? Moreover, he's a rogue cultivator who doesn't belong to any sect. This guy. Speaking of this, Sapphire Shore's eyes emitted a wisp of killing intent. He had already guessed Wenjue's identity, but he didn't say it out loud. Instead, his expression returned to normal. Wenjue is Zhuowen in reverse. Looks like this kid is Zhuowen in disguise. This kid has guts. He actually dares to come to the 9 Netherworld Assembly, Sapphire Shore thought to himself. Originally, Sapphire Shore should have taken action the moment he discovered Zhuowen. However, he didn't. That was because the 9 Netherworld platform was controlled by Chao Rong. The latter was a member of the Primal Chaos Shrine. Furthermore, Sapphire Shore already had a huge plan in mind. Once this plan succeeded, not only would he be able to capture that little bastard Zhuowen, but the entire 9 Netherworld realm would also be in his pocket. I'll let this little bastard jump around for a while longer. After the plan is carried out, this kid will definitely die. Sapphire Shore's eyes emitted a cold light as he thought to himself. It wasn't only Sapphire Shore who noticed Zhuowen. Some of the other leaders of the Nether realm also began to notice Zhuowen. Especially when they saw Zhuowen kill Wulan with a single punch, they all revealed looks of astonishment. However, they didn't link Zhuo and Zhuowen together like Sapphire Shore. After all, in terms of familiarity, Sapphire Shore understood Zhuowen better, so he was able to quickly link the two together. On the square platform of the martial Nether realm, Wu Ho frowned. He felt that Zhuo was somewhat similar. However, at first glance, Zhuo's aura was extremely unfamiliar. Wu Ho couldn't be sure. I'm afraid I'm overthinking things. Chapter 1470. Ruthless. Each of the 30 arenas was assigned to 100 people. Currently, there were only 4 people with a winning streak in the 7th arena. They were Zhuowen, who used the alias Zhuo Jingtang from the Blue Dragon Hall, Shi Yi from the League of Assassins, and Shuaizhi from the Undying Altar. Originally, there were 5 people with a winning streak, and the 5th was Wu Lan. However, Wu Lan had just been killed by Zhuowen in the arena. Everyone in the 7th arena fell into silence at this moment. They looked at the young man standing in the center of the arena with fear and respect in their eyes. Who is this Zhuo? He's so terrifying that he even killed Wulan with a single punch. It wasn't just the 7th arena. The cultivators in the other arenas also began to pay attention to the situation in the 7th arena. In the 9 Nethermeet, those who could stand out from hundreds of thousands of people and advance to the top 3,000 were all elites among elites. Even if their cultivation wasn't high, they still had the strength to fight above their level. Moreover, the natural world wasn't vast. Therefore, the cultivators participating in the arena battles in every corner of this world could clearly see the various situations in the other arenas. Generally, in the arenas, the battles between the strong would attract the attention of many other cultivators. At the beginning, although the battle between Zhuowen and Wu Lan had attracted the attention of some people, there weren't many who paid attention to it. However, when Zhuowen casually threw out a punch and instantly killed Wu Lan, the attention of most of the cultivators in the natural world fell on the 7th arena. The 7th arena, Zhuo. Qing Longzi stood quietly in the 1st arena. His opponent had just admitted defeat. In addition to the commotion caused by the surrounding cultivators, his gaze also fell on Zhuowen, who was in the 7th arena. In addition, Wu Lan, who had been instantly killed, was a core disciple of the Blue Dragon Hall. Although Qing Longzi's eyes were as calm as an ancient well, from his slightly clenched hands, one could see that his heart was actually far from as calm as he appeared to be. Turning his head slightly, Zhuowen's gaze fell on Qing Longzi in the 1st arena. Instantly, the two of them looked at each other, and sparks flew between them. I'll remember you. Qing Longzi's mouth moved slightly, but no sound came out. However, Zhuowen was able to read his lips. Zhuowen just smiled and didn't care too much. Since he planned to take revenge on the 5 great forces during the 9 Underworld Conference, he was already prepared for the risk of being exposed. Now that he was standing out, he would naturally attract the attention of others. Fortunately, the 9 Underworld Conference was hosted by the Primal Chaos Temple. The leaders of the other forces did not have the right to approach the 9 Underworld Sky platform. Hence, Zhuowen was not worried about being recognized. Even if he was recognized, the leaders of those forces couldn't do anything to him. As for the juniors of the 5 major forces, there were very few who could threaten him. As Xiao Chen walked down the arena, the many cultivators below consciously made way for him, their eyes filled with reverence. He even dared to kill Wu Lan, a core disciple of the Blue Dragon Hall. This young man was definitely an unbridled, ruthless person. At present, no one dared to provoke such a ruthless person. Let the battle continue. After coming back to his senses, Chao Rong calmly announced the continuation of the competition. Boom, boom, boom. The competition continued. At present, everyone in the 7th arena had fought close to 80 battles. There were only about 20 battles left. In the 81st battle, Shueisha and Zheng Tang of the Blue Dragon Hall met. In the arena, the two faced each other. Zheng Tang's eyes were filled with fear as he said, "Brother Shueisha, let me have a taste of your strength." Shueisha looked at Zheng Tang indifferently and said, "Brother Zheng, in order to leave you some face, you should admit defeat. Otherwise, you will lose miserably." Hearing this, Zheng Tang's expression changed slightly. He said with some dissatisfaction, "Although Brother Shueisha is a half-saint, I think I am still qualified to fight with Shueisha." Shueisha revealed a subtle smile and said, "Since that is the case, you can make your move." Zheng Tang didn't waste any time. He took a step forward, and clusters of green vines immediately surged out from his body like countless green pythons. Zheng Tang had mastered the law of wood, the same as Long Tian. "Be careful." As Zheng Tang spoke, he leaped up and stepped on the green vines. The countless disorderly vines intertwined and finally condensed into a giant green dragon. As the name suggested, many of the cultivation techniques of the Blue Dragon Hall were related to dragons. Therefore, even the attacks of the law would choose to imitate a giant dragon. Shueisha stood in place with his eyelids lowered. He was as still as a mountain. The moment the giant green dragon appeared in front of him, Shueisha reached out with his right hand. An aura of death lingered, and then a giant hand more terrifying than the giant dragon suddenly appeared behind him. Boom! The giant hand grabbed the giant green dragon. The giant dragon was like a small snake. It was pinched by the giant hand and slammed into the ground, causing the entire ground to tremble violently. Spiderweb-like cracks spread out from the center of the giant green dragon. On the other hand, Zheng Tang spat out a mouthful of blood and was suddenly sent flying, smashing heavily below the arena. "Thank you for showing mercy, Brother Shueisha." Zheng Tang hurriedly got up and looked at Shueisha gratefully. Shueisha had held back just now. Otherwise, he would have been seriously injured and not just lightly injured. Shueisha nodded slightly and slowly walked down the arena. As expected of the number 1 genius of the undying altar in the Netherworld realm. What terrifying battle strength. Everyone below the arena looked at Shueisha with fear. Moreover, everyone began to compare Shueisha and Wenjue. If the two of them were to fight, who would be stronger? Thump, thump, thump. Shueisha walked down the arena and went straight to Zhuowen's side. He passed by without stopping. However, the moment they passed each other, Shueisha sent a secret voice-sending message to Zhuowen. "I'm looking forward to seeing how many moves you can take from me if we meet each other." Zhuowen only smiled faintly and did not reply. Or rather, he did not take Shueisha's words seriously at all. However, Shueisha's move just now made Zhuowen a little surprised because he could faintly feel that the law that Shueisha grasped was somewhat similar to the law of death that he grasped. "I've always heard that the Netherworld realm worships death. It seems that Shueisha has grasped the law of death." Zhuowen muttered to himself. Number 15, Wenjue. Chao Rong shouted again, and Zhuowen leaped onto the stage again. However, his opponent immediately cowered and forfeited the battle. Now, Zhuowen was publicly recognized as a ruthless person in the 7th arena. He could even kill an invincible Emperor Lord with a punch. Other than a few people in the 7th arena, the rest did not have the courage to face Zhuowen. In the next 10 matches, Zhuowen won very easily. The opponents he chose basically all forfeited immediately, so Zhuowen directly reached a 90-win streak. Number 15, Wenjue against number 54, Zheng Tang. It was Zhuowen's turn again for the 91st match. However, when Chao Rong made the announcement, many people below the arena fell silent. The scene of Wu Lan being killed by Zhuowen with a single punch was still vivid in everyone's mind. Zheng Tang was Wu Lan's senior brother. Now that the two of them met, the surrounding atmosphere immediately became a little strange. Zheng Tang's face was a little purple, and his eyes flickered. Speaking of which, when he looked at the young man in front of him, the scene of Wu Lan's death naturally appeared in his mind. However, Zheng Tang was a little unwilling to forfeit immediately, so he decided to throw down a few harsh words first before forfeiting. "Wenjue, you killed my Blue Dragon Hall's people. You might be safe in the 9 Netherworld Assembly now, but when the 9 Netherworld Assembly ends, it will be your death. Also, don't have any thoughts of getting lucky. In the 9 Netherworld realm, our Blue Dragon Hall is the strongest force. Even if you escape to the ends of the earth, you will still be wanted by our Blue Dragon Hall and be captured. Jing Tang stood proudly. Perhaps because he was relying on the name of the Blue Dragon Hall behind him, he was not as afraid as he was at the beginning when he faced Yuan. After all, the Blue Dragon Hall was a colossus, and Wenjue was just a small wandering cultivator. However, Yuan did not pay attention to Jing Tang at all. He turned his head to look at Chao Rong and said indifferently, "We've stood on the arena for long enough. We should start now, right?" Chao Rong was startled, then revealed a playful smile and said, "Of course we can start." As soon as he finished speaking, Zhuowen took a stride forward, and he shot violently towards Jing Tang like an ethereal wisp of smoke. Jing Tang did not even have time to react and was stunned on the spot. When he saw Zhuowen rushing towards him without any restraint, especially when he saw the dense killing intent in the latter's eyes, extreme fear rose in his heart. Of course, his battle instincts made Jing Tang release the law of wood at the first moment and surround his body. "I forfeit." The intense fear caused Jing Tang's mind to go blank. The scene of Wu Lan's death constantly reverberated in Jing Tang's mind, causing his body to stiffen. However, before Jing Tang could finish his words, he felt something coming from his chest. Then, he was shocked to discover that a fist had unknowingly landed in front of his chest. Jing Tang spat out a mouthful of blood. He felt as if his internal organs were being overturned, and the blood in his body flowed in reverse. He even had great doubts in his heart. Wenjue was clearly dozens of meters away, so how did the latter arrive in front of him in the blink of an eye? "I forfeit, I forfeit." Jing Tang did not care about his face as he screamed. The fear of death filled his entire mind, and he did not hesitate to shout out the words he felt ashamed of before. "You've lost." Zhuan completely ignored Jing Tang's screams. The law of fire spread from his fist and entered Jing Tang's body. With a miserable howl, Jing Tang's body was wrapped in 9-colored flames. When the howl came to an abrupt end, Jing Tang disappeared, leaving behind a pile of black ashes. Hiss. Chapter 1471. Yang Yan below the stage, Shuizhe, who was watching the show, also frowned. Just now, the scene that happened in the arena was really strange. Jing Tang was clearly going to forfeit, and Wenjue was dozens of meters away from Jing Tang, but in the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Jing Tang as if he had teleported. His speed was so fast that Jing Tang didn't even have time to forfeit. "Did he use laws just now?" Shuizhe murmured. Zhuowen's teleportation had only happened in an instant, and the fluctuation of laws was very weak, so he couldn't be sure. On the square platform of the Dragon Underworld, Qing Yuan narrowed his eyes. Although he appeared to be extremely shocked, his heart was burning with rage. The laws of the void. As expected, he's that little bastard Jun. Sapphire Shore was 100% sure that Wenjue on the 7th stage was the Zhuowen he had been searching for. However, Sapphire Shore didn't say anything. Even if 2 core disciples of the Blue Dragon Hall were killed, he didn't reveal Zhuowen's background. 100 wins in a row. A loud shout sounded in the natural world, and everyone's gazes gathered on the first stage. Over there, a figure stood proudly like a pine tree. A huge illusory dragon figure lingered on the surface of this figure. Many loud and clear dragon roars continuously resounded. Blue Dragon Hall's Qing Longzi. He's the first to obtain 100 wins in a row. Qing Longzi's eyes were calm as he faced the gazes of the crowd. His cultivation was undoubtedly first among all the participants in the 9 Nether meet. He was able to reach the 2nd profound Nirvana Saint realm at such a young age. Qing Longzi slowly walked down the stage, but his body stiffened as soon as he landed. "Qing Longzi, be careful of Wenjue in the 3rd stage." A deep voice echoed in Qing Longzi's mind. The latter frowned slightly in astonishment. "It's Zhuowen?" Qing Longzi's gaze shifted slightly and landed on the 7th arena, where Wenjue suddenly stood. His expression started to become cautious. But at the same time, In addition to being cautious, there was also a hint of fanaticism. 2 years ago, the news of the 6 sages joining forces had shaken the entire 9th Netherworld realm. The main character of this matter was a young man called Zhuowen, and he possessed a legendary immortal saint artifact that caused everyone in the 9th Hell realm to seethe with excitement. However, he's only a half-saint. If it wasn't for his celestial saint artifact, he wouldn't be a match for me, Qing Longzi said cautiously. It's best to be careful. That child's strength cannot be judged based on his cultivation base. Furthermore, his immortal sacred artifact is very powerful. However, that child would not dare to take out that item for now. Let's proceed according to the original plan. Qing Yuan transmitted his voice calmly, his tone full of confidence. Qing Longzi nodded. However, he paid more attention to Wen Zhuo in his heart. The deaths of Zheng Tang and Wu Lan thoroughly spread the name of Zhuowen as a ruthless person, and Zhuowen also smoothly obtained the 91st victory. In the remaining 3 victories, Zhuowen's opponents were basically scared out of their wits. Even before Chao Rong said, "Start," they were already shouting and forfeiting. Zheng Tang's death had left a shadow in everyone's heart. They were afraid that they would be killed if they spoke too late. In the 95th battle, Zhuowen met the rogue cultivator, Yang Yan. What surprised Zhuowen was that Yang Yan did not forfeit directly because of Zheng Tang and Wu Lan's deaths. Instead, he was filled with fighting spirit. "You're not afraid of death?" Standing on the opposite side of the arena, Zhuowen asked in amusement. However, Yang Yan shook his head and said, "Since you've embarked on the path of martial arts, you must have the heart to die. If you're afraid of death and cower in fear, how can you continue on the path of martial arts?" "Heart to die." Yun was startled, but soon laughed out loud. Without a doubt, this rogue cultivator before him was very interesting. Moreover, his heart of martial arts was extremely firm. It was no wonder that Yang Yan could cultivate to the level of an unrivaled sovereign lord despite being a rogue cultivator. "Make a move first. Otherwise, you won't have a chance later," Zhuowen said indifferently. There was no doubt that Zhuowen's words were very arrogant, but Yang Yan did not think so. He even felt that Zhuowen's words were giving him a chance to make a move. Up until now, no one had been able to withstand more than one move from this young man in front of him. Even Wu Lan and Zheng Tang, who were also unrivaled sovereign lords, couldn't do it. As for Yang Yan, he was only an unrivaled sovereign lord. The fact that Jun allowed him to make the first move was already giving him the best chance. "Then you'll have to be careful." Yang Yan took a deep breath, and the aura of law swept out from his body. Zhuowen revealed a trace of interest. In the previous battle, Yang Yan had never used his own power of law, so he had no idea what kind of law the latter had comprehended. "Hell!" Yang Yan softly exhaled, before the entire arena began to tremble. Soon after, a pitch-black fog enveloped the entire arena. Looking at the tragic scenes that appeared around him, Zhuowen's eyes revealed a look of surprise. These scenes were extremely tragic. There were tongues being pulled out, mountains of knives, seas of fire, stone pressure, pots of oil. There were all kinds of torture. If someone with a weak will saw such a tragic scene at first glance, their legs would definitely go soft and their heart would be filled with fear. When these scenes gradually disappeared, Zhuowen found that there were countless mountains of knives in front of him, and there were countless blades under his feet. "Mountain of knives, hell!" A low voice entered his ears, and then the blades under his feet began to surge, piercing through Zhuowen's feet and through his head. An intense pain spread from his feet to his entire body. Even though Zhuowen knew that this was an illusion, he still broke out in a cold sweat. What kind of law is this? The scene inside shows the underworld? Zhuowen revealed a strange expression. It's an extremely special law, called the law of hell. To be able to comprehend this law, a cultivator needs to have an extremely strong will. Xiao Hei's solemn voice rang out as he continued, because the prerequisite for a cultivator who wants to comprehend this kind of law is to experience all the torture from the 1st floor to the 18th floor. Only then are they qualified. Zhuowen's heart moved. The 18 levels of hell, each level down, the torture became more and more tragic. Just looking at it was enough to make one's scalp tingle, let alone experiencing it. Although the torture formed by the law of hell was an illusion, the pain was real. Desolation. Jun was not afraid. He clenched his right hand, and the law of desolation gathered, forming a black ball the size of a palm. He slammed his right hand on the ground, and the aura of desolation spread out. Under the erosion of the power of desolation, the entire mountain of knives hell was turned into nothingness. Desolation could turn everything into nothingness. Whether it was living or dead, under the influence of desolation, everything would turn into nothingness. Juan strolled leisurely. Starting from the first level of hell, he went down level by level. Under his control, the law of desolation made everything desolate. When the 18th level was completely withered under the effect of the law of desolation, the law of hell that lingered around the arena shattered inch by inch like glass. The law of hell. This Yang Yen is just a small wandering cultivator. How can he comprehend such a powerful law? The moment Yang Yen released the law of hell, it immediately attracted the attention of countless spectating faction leaders around the 9th Underworld Sky platform. Even the cultivators below the 7th arena were affected by the law of hell. Some people with weak wills started shouting, but fortunately, they were stopped by the cultivators beside them. This Yang Yen is stronger than Jing Tang and Wulan. I'm afraid he can make Wenjue look a little more miserable. Chao Rong floated quietly at the edge of the arena, a look of admiration in his eyes. Although Yang Yan's law was very special, he still did not think that Yang Yen would win. He would only obstruct Zhuowen to a certain extent. Break! An indifferent voice sounded around the arena. Then, the barrier formed by the law of hell shattered. Puchi! Yang Yen spat out a mouthful of blood and retreated to the edge of the arena with a bitter smile on his face. The black fog gradually dissipated, and a figure stood proudly. His gaze fell on Yang Yen as he said indifferently, "Do you still want to fight?" Hearing this, Yang Yan's bitter smile deepened as he said in a low voice, "You win." After he finished speaking, he jumped down in a straightforward manner. This Yang Yen is not bad. His will is as strong as iron. If he doesn't fall and becomes a saint by relying on the law of hell, he will definitely not be an ordinary saint. Xiao Hei's voice gradually sounded. Zhuo nodded. This Yang Yen was indeed not bad. If there was a chance, he was willing to rope Yang Yen into Ryuka. However, he was not in a hurry. With Yang Yan's points, entering the top 100 of the second round was not a problem. Moreover, from the confrontation just now, Zhuowen could also tell that this Yang Yen was a proud and arrogant fellow. If he directly proposed the terms of roping him in, the latter would definitely reject him. This kind of thing had to be done at the right time. In the 97th round, Yuan met Shi Yi from the League of Assassins. Shi Yi was extremely cautious. With his assassin's intuition, he could feel the hidden killing intent in Zhuowen's eyes. Therefore, before Chao Rong's announcement, he decisively forfeited and did not plan to fight with Zhu. After all, the second round of the arena used a point system. Losing a few rounds would not hinder one from entering the third round. In the 98th and 99th rounds, Jun met characters who were just there for show. It was very easy for him to advance. Number 15 Wenjue against number 7 Shueizhi. Chao Rong announced again. Then, the 7th arena fell into silence. Surprisingly, everyone's gaze landed on Zhuowen and Shueizhi. Shueizhi, the number 1 genius of the Undying Altar in the Netherworld realm. His cultivation was at the half-step saint realm, and the law he comprehended was the extremely rare law of death. Wenjue was a dark horse that had suddenly appeared in the 7th arena. He had been rising steadily since the first match. Even the invincible sovereign lords Wu Lan and Zheng Tang were killed with a single punch. His cultivation base was undoubtedly at the half-step saint realm. Both of them also maintained the record of consecutive victories. Now that they met, they would compete for the spot of 100 consecutive victories. Previously, many people below the arena had compared the two, and the conclusion was that it was hard to say who would win and who would lose. Come up. Shueizhi jumped up and stood in the middle of the arena, looking down at Zhuowen with a provocative gaze. You don't seem to be qualified to look down on me, right? Chapter 1472. Eyes of Death. Where did this Wenjue come from? He's actually so strong. On the square platform where the undying altar was, the undying old monster narrowed his eyes. Shueisha was the #1 genius of the undying altar, so the undying old monster paid close attention to the 7th arena. In the undying old monster's opinion, it shouldn't be a surprise that Shueisha obtained 100 consecutive victories, but the sudden appearance of Wenjue made the undying old monster feel a trace of threat. He was also a half-saint, and he could kill an invincible sovereign lord with one punch. His strength was infinitely close to Shueisha's. It could be said that Wenjue was definitely Shueisha's greatest opponent this time. Lord Undying, don't worry. Shueisha's abilities were all inherited from you, undying old monster. Although Wenjue's strength is extraordinary, it's still not enough to face Shueisha. Beside the undying old monster, the elder of the undying altar kept talking without any worry on his face. After all, Shueisha wasn't an ordinary half-saint. In the eyes of the elders of the undying altar, it was impossible for Jun to be Shueisha's opponent. The undying old monster nodded. Shueisha was a genius nurtured by the undying altar, and he had a lot of trump cards. He didn't think that Shueisha would lose to Wenjue because of this. The moment Jun and Shueisha clashed, countless people's gazes gathered on them. At this moment, many of the arena battles had already ended, and the contestants with 100 consecutive victories were looking at the 7th arena with interest. This Wenjue's strength is extraordinary. I wonder if he can win against Shueisha? The flower fairy of the 100-flower garden in the flower nether realm had a graceful figure among the flowers, and her laughter was crisp and pleasant like a silver bell. Many of the surrounding cultivators were absent-minded, and their eyes were filled with infatuation. Shazi replied coldly. I also don't think so. Although Shueisha's cultivation is only a half-saint, his power of law is extremely powerful. Ordinary profound sky saints probably can't do anything to him. Yaksha, whose body was surrounded by countless waves, laughed coldly, and his voice was extremely sinister and terrifying. Although the other top geniuses of the Netherworld realm didn't say anything, it was obvious from their expressions that they were more inclined towards Shueisha. As the #1 genius of the Nether realm, they had sparred before, so they knew how powerful each other was. It was precisely because they knew Shueisha's background that they were so certain of his victory. Yang Yi leaned lazily on the edge of the arena. He was surrounded by several junior brothers and sisters of the academy. His gaze landed lazily on Wenjue, revealing a faintly discernible smile. His strength is not bad. He can actually maintain a 99 win streak. Shueisha stood proudly and continued, however, your winning streak will end very soon. It will be ended by me. Jun glanced indifferently at Shueisha, then looked at Chao Rong and said, Senior Chao Rong, I don't want to listen to your nonsense. Let's start quickly. As soon as these words came out, Shueisha's face stiffened. Soon after, veins appeared in his eyes. That was a sign of anger. This Wenjue was really too much. He actually dared to say that he was spouting nonsense in front of him. It was very obvious that he did not put him in his eyes at all. Let's start, Chao Rong said indifferently. Speaking of which, he also wanted to see what kind of sparks would fly between these two geniuses, who were both half-saint cultivations. Especially Wenjue, who had not been able to see his exact cultivation before. It was only during the battle that he completely sensed the aura of his true cultivation. It was very obvious that Wenjue had cultivated an incredible concealment secret technique. Even a heavenly saint like him had been fooled by him at the beginning. In addition to the powerful fighting strength that Wenjue had displayed, it caused Chao Rong to be extremely interested in this unremarkable individual cultivator. As soon as Chao Rong spoke, Shueisha moved. His movements were extremely swift. Like a cunning rabbit, he rushed over and arrived in front of Jun in an instant. You're not going to use the power of laws? Jun stood quietly on the spot. He raised his head slightly and looked at Shueisha, who was almost within reach. Do I need the power of laws to deal with you? As Shueisha spoke, he threw a punch fiercely toward Zhuowen's head. Then don't regret it. Zhuowen grinned and also threw a punch. This punch had extremely obvious traces of golden veins on the surface of his fist. A vast aura spread out. Boom! As the two fists collided, there was a thunderous sound. Then, Shueisha retreated dozens of steps, while Zhuan did not move at all. What a terrifying monstrous strength! Shueisha's eyes were filled with fear. He stared at Zhuan in astonishment. He really could not figure out why the physical body of the young man in front of him was so terrifying. Shueisha is at a disadvantage? In the eyes of the others, this scene made them feel complicated. I can't be careless. Shueisha's eyes became cautious. He gently swung his right hand, and his slightly twisted wrist began to gradually recover. The Shueisha bellowed, and the aura of death spread out. Then, a huge shadow of the Grim Reaper appeared behind him. The Death God shadow was tall and big. It wore a hooded black windbreaker and held a black sickle that was several feet long. As soon as the death law was released, Shueisha's right foot stomped on the ground. A terrifying force spread out, and the ground under his feet suddenly cracked. Swoosh! Shueisha was like an arrow that left the bow. He rushed out and threw out another punch. This punch was condensed with a vast amount of death intent. The strong death intent spread out and even affected many of the surrounding martial artists, making them feel a sense of fear in the face of death. Desolation. Zhuan was not to be outdone. Waves of desolation power spread out, as if it could turn everything in the world into a wasteland. This desolation power condensed in Zhuan's palm and formed a small black ball. The moment Shueisha rushed over, Zhuan pushed out his palm and pressed it in front of Shueisha. Boom! The two powers of desolation and death collided. Gray and black almost filled the entire arena. Then, the huge arena began to age like a withered flower. Finally, it collapsed inch by inch and turned into dust. Swoosh swoosh! The moment the arena shattered, two figures retreated from the two sides of the ruins and floated in the air. The aftermath turned into airwaves and spread out in all directions. The martial artists in the seventh arena could not help but step back with fear in their eyes. In the air, Shueisha and Zhuan faced each other from a distance. Their fighting spirit soared. Your strength is not bad. The power of the desolation law is also very strong. Unfortunately, the death law that I have comprehended is more powerful than your desolation law. Shueisha's mouth was full of mockery. In terms of laws, the death law was indeed more powerful than the desolation law. So what? The one who will lose in the end is still you. Yun did not bother with Shueisha. He clenched his right hand and the desolation law rolled out and condensed into a large spear. Swoosh! Zhuan stood with the spear in his hand. His right foot stepped on the void. His entire body was like a puff of green smoke as he rushed out. With a swing of the spear, the terrifying desolation law spread out, causing the space to distort. Shueisha was not to be outdone. He stretched out his right hand and the death god shadow behind him roared. Like a shadow, it enveloped Shueisha. Suddenly, Shueisha's entire body was filled with the aura of death. The death god shadow was like a coat that covered Shueisha's body, causing his aura to soar to the extreme. Die! Shueisha roared and slashed out with the death god scythe. The blade spewed out a black light that seemed to have substance. It rushed out from the void and slashed in front of Zhuan. Zhuan's eyes were cold. He spun the desolation spear in his hand and a gray desolation law spread out. Boom! The two weapons collided and a gray mushroom cloud of energy burst out. The aftermath was like a ripple that spread out in all directions, causing the surrounding space to distort and become unstable. Bang! 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 Both of them retreated dozens of steps. Then, not to be outdone, they shouted and stomped their feet. Like a whirlwind, the two of them intertwined again. The power of the two laws of desolation and death intertwined, erupting with an extremely mysterious fluctuation. This fluctuation spread out and set off an endless wave of air. The people around the arena were all forced back by this wave of air. Some cultivators who were not strong enough even spat out a mouthful of blood under this wave of air. Their faces turned as pale as snow. What a terrifying power of law! The battle between the two of them, not only the other cultivators in the seventh arena, But even the cultivators in the other arenas in the natural world were stunned. Their gazes fell on the two figures that were constantly intertwining. Because the two of them were moving so fast, some people could not even see the exact trajectory of the two. They could only tell that the battle between the two of them was extremely fierce and terrifying from the fluctuations produced by their collision. The Flower Fairy, Shazi Yaksha, and the other top geniuses of the underworld, who had evaluated Zhuowen and Shueizhe, were also stunned. Looks like Wen Zhuo is not simple. He has comprehended the law of desolation. Even Shueizhe's law of death could not suppress him. The Flower Fairy giggled and let out a bell-like laugh. Her beautiful eyes stared at Wen Zhuo with curiosity and interest. Bang! There was another muffled sound. Shueizhe and Zhuowen both retreated dozens of steps and faced each other from a distance. Shueizhe's eyes were solemn as he said in a deep voice, "Looks like you did not use your full strength before. It's really rare that the law of desolation can exert such great power on you. However, the battle between us will end soon." As he spoke, the law of death on Shueizhe's body began to surge and a shocking black light burst out from between his eyebrows. As he spoke, a crack appeared between Shueizhe's eyebrows and a black pupil emerged from the crack. The moment the death sigh cracked, the law of death around Shueizhe began to boil and gathered in the black pupil between his eyebrows. Whoosh! Chapter 1473. Daytime Golden Wheel. This dark ray of light contained an extremely powerful death intent. It could be said that this ray of light condensed the essence of the law of death. The dense death intent seemed to be able to immerse all living beings in a kingdom of death. A trace of extreme fear rose in Zhuowen's mind. This fear was like a cloud that lingered in his heart, causing his hair to stand on end and cold sweat to drip down his forehead. Boom! Zhuowen was not afraid. As someone who had also comprehended the law of death, his fear of death was much lower than others. He swung his right hand and the desolation spear spun at high speed. The law of desolation was like maggots that lingered on the surface of the spear. Wherever the spear passed, even space seemed to become desolate and distorted. Boom! The desolation spear collided with the death ray. Immediately, the desolation spear in Zhuowen's hand crumbled. Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He did not expect the death ray to be so terrifying. The desolation spear could not resist at all. This death's eye is probably Shueizhe's armor soul. Retreat immediately. The moment the desolation spear was destroyed, Zhuowen pushed off with his right foot. Like a rock spreading its wings, he leapt into the air and retreated. Zhuowen snorted coldly. With a thought, the death ray turned around like a living creature and continued to rush towards Zhuowen. Zhuowen's expression changed slightly. He suddenly threw out his right fist. The law of desolation condensed on his fist. Immediately, a gray mark lit up on the surface of his fist. The aura of desolation became even more terrifying. Rumble! The huge fist slammed into the death ray. Immediately after, a muffled, thunderous sound erupted. Then, with Zhuowen as the center, the space several hundred feet around him turned into a vacuum. At the edge of this space, it collapsed like shattered glass. Many martial artists below the arena were dumbfounded by what they saw. Bang! A muffled sound rang out once again as Zhuowen took a few steps back. The death ray had also completely exploded under the attack of his fist. Damn it, this guy can actually break the death ray of the death ray? The law of desolation shouldn't be this powerful. Shueizhe was finally slightly shocked. Theoretically speaking, the might of the law of desolation was lower than the law of death. Moreover, Wen Zhuo's cultivation was the same as his, a half-saint. When the two great laws collided, the law of death should have gained the upper hand. However, the current situation surprised Shueizhe. What Shueizhe didn't know was that the desolation law that Zhuowen had used just now was combined with a part of the holy body's power to have such a powerful increase. Otherwise, the law of desolation alone would not be a match for the law of death. I don't believe you can keep blocking the death ray. Shueizhe's gaze was cold and gloomy. His eyes of death blinked repeatedly and actually shot out 3 beams of death light in an instant. The power displayed by each death ray was much more terrifying than the previous one. Zhuowen's eyelids twitched slightly, but he was not afraid. He punched out again and again, smashing on the 3 death rays. Bang bang bang. Although these 3 beams of death brought him even more powerful obstacles, he broke through them one by one without showing any signs of weakness. What? This guy? Shueisha exclaimed, his eyes filled with disbelief. Your eyes of death combined with the law of death is indeed terrifying, but it's still a little lacking when compared to me. While Shueisha was in a daze, an indifferent voice could be heard coming from behind him like a ghost. You. Suddenly turning around, Shueisha's pupils shrunk when he realized that Zhuan was already standing behind him. That Zhuan did not give Shueisha a chance to speak. His fist came at a tricky angle and violently punched towards Shueisha's heart. Bastard, you're not qualified to kill me. Shueisha shouted, and a terrifying holy aura burst out from his body. Immediately after, a blazing golden light gushed out from the back of his head. The golden light began to wriggle and gather, turning into a golden ring. Ding! Zhuowen's fist came and hit the golden ring. Immediately, the crisp sound of metal clashing resounded. Ding! 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 Zhuan staggered and retreated dozens of steps. His eyes became somewhat solemn as he said, "Profound saint artifact?" The saint aura emanating from the surface of the golden ring that floated above Shueisha's head was too blazing and majestic. Even Zhuowen could not help but take a step back. It's actually a profound saint artifact. Sure enough, the top genius of the nether realm is not easy to deal with. Looking at the golden ring above Shueisha's head, many cultivators below the arena were envious. Profound saint artifacts were rare in the 9 nether realm. Even some profound saint realm saints might not necessarily have a profound saint artifact. Shueisha was only a half-step saint, but he had a profound saint artifact. This was definitely a great fortune. However, Shueisha was the top genius of the undying sacred altar in the nether realm. He was the focus of the undying old freak, so it was understandable that he would take out a profound saint artifact to save Shueisha's life. He forced Shueisha to use his profound saint artifact. Wenju's death was worth it. On the square platform of the nether realm, the undying old freak's eyes were indifferent, but his heart was not calm. Shueisha was considered to be one of the top geniuses of the younger generation in the 9 nether realm. He should have won 100 consecutive victories in the 7th arena. But now, a dark horse like Wenju had appeared. The undying old freak's mood was quite gloomy. After all, the profound saint artifact was Shueisha's life-saving treasure. He would not use it unless he had no other choice. Profound saint artifact, daytime golden wheel. Shueisha raised his right hand and grabbed the daytime golden wheel in his hand. Suddenly, an extremely dazzling golden light burst out from the center of the golden wheel. The golden light continued to converge and finally condensed into a small sun that was suspended above Shueisha's head. Looks like Shueisha's going to win. The flower fairy giggled, revealing a charming look in her beautiful eyes. And this kid is definitely going to die, Shazi said in an extremely cold voice. Hee, with Shueisha's character, it is indeed possible for him to kill this kid. Yaksha licked his lips and said indifferently. Wrong, 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 all of you are wrong. Just as the flower fairy and the other two were discussing whether Zhuowen would die, an untimely voice interrupted their conversation. Wrong? Why do you say that, Brother Yang? Do you still think that Wenju can defeat Shueisha, who has the daytime golden wheel? The flower fairy's beautiful eyes flickered. Although she was giggling, her face showed that she did not care. Obviously, she did not believe Yang Yi's words. Sha Zi and Yaksha glanced at Yang Yi with fear, and then sneered together. Brother Yang Yi, you are a little old. Shueisha has the strength of a half-saint and a profound saint artifact. Can't he kill a half-saint warrior? Yang Yi glanced at Sha Zi and Yaksha indifferently and said, What I want to say is that not only will Wenjuo win, but he will also kill Shueisha. As soon as these words came out, the faces of the flower fairy and the other two stiffened. They even thought that there was something wrong with their ears. Brother Yang Yi, are you joking with us? The flower fairy came back to her senses and said indifferently. Sha Zi and Yaksha's faces did not look good. Obviously, They also thought that Yang Yi was joking with them. Joking? Yang Yi never joke. Since you don't believe me, then forget it. I will sleep for a while. Yang Yi yawned, and then leaned on the stone pillar behind him and took a nap. The flower fairy and the other two looked at each other speechlessly. You are dead meat. Shuai's face was ferocious. With the daytime golden wheel in his hand and the blazing golden sun above his head, he took a step forward and pressed down with his right hand. A terrifying Saint aura, as if it was real, rumbled and crushed on Zhuan. Zhuan narrowed his eyes when he felt the terrifying Saint aura. He flicked his right hand and took out a long spear. The body of the spear was painted with the patterns of the sun, moon, and stars, and the surface of the spear blade was covered with many green lines. The same Saint aura slanted and resisted the Saint aura of Shuai's daytime golden wheel. Saint aura? You also have a mystic saint artifact? Shuai exclaimed, his eyes filled with disbelief. He had a mystic saint artifact because of the undying altar. However, Wenjuo was just a rogue cultivator. How could he have the chance to have a mystic saint artifact? This was truly inconceivable. Not only Shuai, but the countless spectators around the 9th Underworld Sky platform were also shocked. A rogue cultivator actually had a mystic saint artifact. It was really worthy of consideration and suspicion. Mystic saint artifact, 9 stars 8 trigram spear. After saying that, Yun did not waste any more time. He stomped his right foot on the ground and rushed out like a hurricane towards Shuai. Zhuan waved his long spear, and suddenly, the sun, moon, and stars appeared around him. His saint aura was vast and mighty, and its power was enough to shatter heaven and earth. Boom, boom, boom. The 9 stars 8 trigram spear collided with the daytime golden wheel. The saint aura spread out, and there was an earth-shattering explosion. The surrounding space cracked inch by inch, forming a terrifying black hole. Boom, boom. After the explosion, a figure flew out in a sorry state. He only managed to stabilize himself after flying for a few hundred meters. When the crowd looked over, they were shocked to find that the figure that flew out was none other than Shuai. Swoosh. The moment Shuai stabilized himself, a figure stomped his feet in the air and shot out like an arrow. The long spear in his hand exploded with the illusion of the sun, moon, and stars. Break! Zhuan arrived in front of Shuai. He held the 9 stars 8 trigrams spear tightly in his right hand and smashed it down. Shuai was horrified when he saw that. He raised his hands and tried to block the attack. Boom! When the 9 stars 8 trigrams spear came into contact with the daytime golden wheel, Shuai groaned. He was smashed to the ground by a powerful force, and a deep pit was formed. Chapter 1474. Shuai's death. An angry roar came from below. Shuai was lying in the deep pit, his hair disheveled. He looked like a ghost. The daytime golden wheel circled around Shuai. At this moment, the golden light on its surface was somewhat dim. You're dead. You'll die miserably. Shuai's voice sounded a little crazy and even exasperated. As soon as he finished speaking, the daytime golden wheel in Shuai's hand began to emit a blazing golden light. Then, Shuai threw the golden wheel into the sky, dyeing the whole sky golden. Then, the golden light fell around Zhuan like raindrops, turning into dozens of suns that slowly surrounded Zhuan. Looks like it's an additional skill of the daytime golden wheel. Zhuan's eyes narrowed. With dozens of suns circling around him, the scorching heat could almost dry up the rivers. Even Zhuan felt a little thirsty. Moreover, the power of daytime was very terrifying. The whole natural world was like a furnace, the temperature rising to an extremely terrifying level. Many cultivators were unable to endure the heat, their bodies covered in cold sweat. Shuai's eyes were red, almost crazy. He pressed down with his right hand. Suddenly, the dozens of suns around Zhuan began to expand, pressing toward Zhuan. 9 stars 8 trigrams. Zhuan was not afraid. He swung the 9 stars 8 trigram spear in his hand, drawing a mysterious trajectory in the air. Stars began to rush out, outlining the trajectory of the 8 trigrams in the void, looking mysterious and magical. Boom boom boom. The moment the 9 stars 8 trigram spear was formed, the dozens of suns around it finally expanded to the limit, their edges almost pressing against the surface of the 9 stars 8 trigram spear. Boom. The fierce collision of the two profound saint artifacts caused an extremely dazzling explosion in the air. The saint aura that spread out shook the minds of many cultivators around. Zhuan was extremely calm. The 9 stars 8 trigram spear contained the defensive power of the 9 stars 8 trigram spear. It was as solid as iron and extremely powerful. The power of daytime that Shueisha used with the daytime golden wheel was indeed terrifying, but it still could not break through the defense of the 9 stars 8 trigram spear. Shueisha must die. Through the layers of golden light, Zhuan's gaze passed through the dozens of suns and landed on Shueisha below. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Zhuan muttered in a low voice. Then, with a swoosh, he disappeared into the void. Because Zhuan was surrounded by dozens of suns, the blazing golden light almost blocked the vision and divine sense of other martial artists, so they had no idea what was happening inside. The moment Zhuan stepped into the void, daytime's power exploded to the extreme. In the end, there was a loud explosion that shook the heavens and the earth. The power of the daytime golden wheel is extremely terrifying. Ordinary profound sages might not be able to walk out of it unscathed. The flower fairy's expression was grave. The might of Tianzhou's attack had even moved her. Zi licked his lips and said indifferently, "Brother Yang Yi seems to have guessed wrongly. That Wenjue should be dead for sure." Yaksha smiled coldly. Although he did not say anything, his words and actions had already proved that his thoughts were similar to Sha Zi and the flower fairies. Yang Yi was still leaning on the stone pillar. He did not pay much attention to Sha Zi's mocking words, or it could be said that he simply ignored Sha Zi. On the square platform of the Death Ghost realm, the undying old monster sighed and said with a faint smile, "It seems that Shueisha is going to win." That's natural. After all, Shueisha is a monstrous genius that our undying altar has nurtured with all our strength. Although that Wenjue is not weak and has a profound sage artifact, his strength is definitely not as good as Shueisha's. The several elders behind the undying old monster hurriedly nodded and bowed. However, Shueisha's gaze was slightly furrowed. He felt that something was strange, and an ominous feeling rose in his heart. Suddenly, the sound of something breaking through the air came from behind him. Shueisha's pupils shrank. He suddenly shouted and twisted his waist, forcibly turning around. "How did you get out of the encirclement of daylight?" Shueisha's eyes narrowed into needles as he stared at the figure behind him. He could not help but scream loudly. "That's how I got out." Zhuan smiled faintly. His figure did not change. Like a fish swimming in water, he suddenly threw out the 9 stars 8 trigram spear in his hand. The law of desolation gushed out from his palm and gathered in the 9 stars 8 trigram spear. In an instant, the power of the law of desolation and the power of the profound sage artifact caused the power of the 9 stars 8 trigram spear to reach an unprecedented level. Shueisha was not afraid. The daylight golden wheel in his right hand also blasted out. The law of death enveloped the surface of the daylight golden wheel, causing the power of the daylight golden wheel to increase by several times. When Zhuan arrived in front of Shueisha, his right foot suddenly stomped on the side. His entire body seemed to have teleported, disappearing in front of Shueisha. Boom! Shueisha's daylight golden wheel suddenly swung out. However, it only hit an illusory figure. What's going on? The attack missed, causing Shueisha to fall into a momentary daze. It was this momentary daze that caused Shueisha to reveal a fatal flaw. He saw that Zhuan had unknowingly appeared behind Shueisha. Puchi! The 9 stars 8 trigram spear silently pierced into Shueisha's back. The sound of the sharp weapon piercing into flesh, coupled with the scene of blood spurting out, looked very tragic. Shueisha's body suddenly froze. He slowly turned his head and stared at the indifferent young man behind him. He wanted to speak, but he spat out a mouthful of blood and could not speak. "Die," Zhuan said expressionlessly. After saying this, he clenched the spear in his right hand and spun it. Suddenly, the 9 stars 8 trigram spear began to spin at high speed. The terrifying saint aura of the profound sage artifact continued to run amok in Shueisha's body. Pucci. Shueisha only had time to scream before he was affected by the terrifying saint aura. His entire body exploded into a cloud of blood mist. As for Shueisha's Yuaning, Yun grabbed it in his hand and unceremoniously pressed it between his eyebrows, handing it over to Qing Huang to deal with. An extremely tragic rain of blood fell from the sky above the 7th arena. The number 1 genius of the Undying Altar, Shueisha, had died a tragic death in the 7th arena. This was something that no one had expected. The smile on the Undying Old Monster's face froze. The higher-ups of the Undying Altar behind him also fell into silence. The Flower Fairy, Sha Zi, and Yaksha, who were still discussing animatedly, also froze on the spot. The 3 of them first looked at Juan, who was floating in the air, and then at Yang Yi, who was leaning against a stone pillar and seemed to be dozing off. Their eyes were filled with confusion. Now, Wenjua's actions were indeed as Yang Yi had expected. He had directly killed Shueisha. Could this dark horse Wenjua, who had suddenly appeared, be someone that Yang Yi was familiar with? Harboring such doubts, the 3 of them looked at Juan with fear. Being able to kill Shueisha was enough to prove how powerful the latter was. This Juan is actually so strong? On the first arena, Qing Longzi frowned as he thought to himself. Little bastard, you actually killed Shueisha? You little bastard. The instant everyone fell into silence, an earth-shattering roar rang out from the square platform of the Undying Realm. Soon after, everyone was stunned to discover that the Undying Old Monster on the square platform of the Undying Realm had scarlet eyes. His right foot stepped on the square platform as he rushed towards the 9 Underworld Sky platform. The Undying Old Monster was indeed in existence at the peak of the profound Saint Realm. The 9 Underworld Sky platform originally had a powerful restriction, but this fellow had actually forcefully stepped across the White Jade Bridge and directly arrived at the edge of the platform. However, the instant the Undying Old Monster entered the 9 Underworld Sky platform, a terrifying and imposing force came crashing down. The Undying Old Monster's expression changed drastically as he let out a muffled groan and retreated. Scram! It's not up to you to interfere in the matters of the 9 Underworld Conference. Chao Rong stood in the air above the 9 Underworld Sky platform, coldly staring at the Undying Old Monster. Lord Chao Rong, this person is too rebellious. He actually dared to kill someone in public during the 9 Underworld Conference. He's too arrogant. We can't condone such a little bastard. The Undying Old Monster stabilized his body as he stared at Chao Rong with fear, not daring to act rashly. Chao Rong was not only a heavenly saint expert, but also a member of the Primal Chaos Temple. Whether it was strength or the force behind him, he was an existence that the Undying Altar could not contend against. The Undying Old Monster was extremely afraid of him. It's inevitable that there will be casualties in battle. Why do you care so much? Furthermore, I didn't say that you can't kill people in the arena, so this Juan didn't violate the rules, Chao Rong said indifferently. The Undying Old Monster's expression froze as his gaze flickered. In the end, he sighed softly and said, since that's the case, Lord Chao Rong should return the daytime golden wheel to us. That thing is the profound saint artifact of my Undying Altar. This daytime golden wheel is not bad. I'll take it as my spoil of war and reluctantly accept it. At this moment, Yuan waved his right hand and held the daytime golden wheel in his hand. After carefully examining it for a while, he stuffed the golden wheel into his spiritual ring without blushing. This scene made the Undying Old Monster so angry that he almost wanted to kill someone. However, Chao Rong was in front of him, so he did not dare to act rashly. Chao Rong only glanced at Juan behind him and said indifferently, since the person was killed by Wenjua, then the things on the person's body are indeed Wenjua's spoils of war. It's his freedom to distribute the things however he wants. The Undying Old Monster's expression changed slightly, but he did not dare to say anything. He only glared at Juan fiercely and could only return to the square platform embarrassedly. He could only swallow this loss. After all, with Chao Rong present, he could not deal with Wenjue. After the 9 Underworld Conference ends, I'll make this kid beg for death. Returning to the square platform, the undying old monster fiercely threw down these ruthless words with a ferocious and terrifying expression. On the square platform of the martial nether realm, Wu Ho's eyes narrowed slightly. The scene of Wenjue suddenly disappearing just now, the power of law that permeated the air was actually so familiar. However, because the distance was too far, coupled with the fact that the power of law was extremely weak, he could not see it clearly. Chapter 1475. Competing for Saint Luc when Xue Zhi died, the Saint Luc in his body rushed out and poured into Zhuo Wen's glabella. Blazing golden light spilled out. In an instant, the golden rune on Zhuo Wen's glabella began to expand and split into 2 more golden runes. At this moment, there were 3 golden runes on Zhuo Wen's glabella. At this moment, Yuan quietly floated in the air with narrowed eyes, silently feeling the benefits of the Saint Luc. 3 golden runes meant that the effect of the Saint Luc was much more powerful than 1 golden rune. Yuan had a total of 5 laws, and his understanding of the 5 laws of ice, fire, void, death, and desolation was becoming more and more profound. The golden light from the 3 golden runes was extremely blazing. Even the back of Zhuo Wen's head was shining with a dazzling golden light, like a lifelike ancient Buddha. It's still not enough. 3 golden runes are not enough. Zhuo Wen's eyes narrowed, and a look of surprise appeared on his face. After expanding to 3 golden runes, his understanding of the laws was much deeper than before. He was confident that in his current state, he could use the laws much more skillfully than before. There was no doubt that the power of the laws was much stronger than before. Number 15, Wenjue's 100 win streak. Chao Rong glanced sideways at Zhuo and announced loudly, immediately causing an uproar in the 7th arena. As for Zhuo taking the daytime golden wheel without blushing, he also turned a blind eye. Although a profound saint weapon was quite rare, it was only relative to the 9th netherworld realm. For a colossus like the Primal Chaos Temple, a profound saint weapon was actually not very rare. In addition, Chao Rong was a heavenly saint, so he really did not covet the daytime golden wheel in Zhuowen's hands. Zhuowen walked down from the void step by step, welcoming the countless awe-inspiring gazes below the arena like a king. I didn't expect the winner of the 100 win streak in the 7th arena to be an unknown guy. The number 1 genius of the Demon God Palace, Yun Ran, looked curiously at Zhuowen, who was walking down from the arena. Wu Dai, who was standing beside Yun Ran, also looked at Zhuowen's back with a hint of curiosity. She did not know why, but the young man in front of her gave her a very familiar feeling, as if she had seen him somewhere before. But when she carefully looked at the young man's face, she found that he was still extremely strange. So familiar, yet strange, Wu Dai whispered, her heart trembling. Now that the point challenge tournament is over, the top 100 have been selected. Chao Rong's words, a line's void, suddenly, void behind him. Taking a closer look, the names' editor's rune, the names' note. Seeing the names as seeing Sfeng's the book runes Transin. Zhangzhu. Only 100 out of 3,000 people advanced. The elimination rate was too high. It was destined that only a few people would be able to enter the 3rd stage. Those in the top 100, follow me to the next area. Those who have been eliminated, return to the square in front of the 9th Underworld Sky platform. After Chao Rong finished speaking, he leaped into the void and headed to another area beside the natural world. As for the top 100 cultivators, they looked at each other and followed behind Chao Rong without any hesitation. As for the remaining people, they left the natural world in despair. Outside the 9th Underworld Sky platform, countless people's eyes were focused on the list of the top 100 that Chao Rong had arranged. Although many of the top 100 martial artists had the same number of points, there were even many who had full points. But even if they had the same number of points, Chao Rong would still rank the martial artists according to their performance in the arena. Among them, the top 15 martial artists of the arena competition received the most attention. First place, Qing Longzi. Second place, Yan Ruhua. Third place, Yang. 4th place, Guisha. 5th place, Flower Fairy. 6th place, Lu Han Tian. 7th place, Tian Long. 8th place, Mo Wen. 9th place, Sha Zi. 10th place, Wenjue. 11th place, Yaksha. 12th place, Yun Ran. 13th place, Jian Mu. 14th place, Supreme Demon Lord. 15th place, Buddhist Scripture. Many dark horses had appeared in this arena competition. Originally, everyone thought that the top 10 would be monopolized by the top geniuses of the 9 underworld realms, but this was not the case. Among them, Yen Ruhua, Lu Hantian, Long Tian, and Wenjue were not famous in the 9 underworld realm, but now they had rushed into the top 10 in one go. They could be said to be the most incredible dark horses of this arena competition. In particular, Yen Ruhua, Lu Hantian, and Long Tian were all profound sages. This kind of cultivation made many martial artists feel a little surprised. As for Wenjue, because he had not entered the sage realm, he was a little inconspicuous compared to Yen Ruhua and the other two. Seeing that both his demonic and Buddhist avatars had entered the top 15, Zhuowen nodded inwardly, extremely satisfied in his heart. Speaking of which, the two avatars were very talented. If it were not for the fact that they were demonic cultivators and Buddhist cultivators, they would have already become sages. However, even though they had not entered the sage realm, the two avatars already had the strength of an initial profound sage. At least, ordinary sages in the void sage realm would not be able to do anything to these two avatars. As for Wu Dai, Mo Yen Wusheng, Jianan, and Gatha, who Zhuowen paid more attention to, they had all entered the top 100. However, Mo Lingtian was quite unlucky because he was assigned to the first arena, which was the arena where Qing Longzi was. The comprehensive strength of the first arena was very strong. Although Mo Lingtian's cultivation was not weak, he was still eliminated in the first arena. Among the top 15, in the 9 underworld realms, except for the martial dark realm, there were more or less one or several disciples who had entered. However, there was not a single disciple from the martial dark realm. In fact, among the top 100 this time, there were only 2 disciples from the martial dark realm, which made Wu Ho's expression extremely ugly. These 2 disciples were both in the 9th Heaven Emperor realm before. Later, they relied on the Saint Luck to comprehend the laws and advance to the invincible Emperor realm. I hope Gu Hui and Hida can perform well in the 3rd round. Wu Ho's eyes were filled with helplessness. The core disciples and the number 1 prodigy of the sacred martial sect were all killed by Zhuowen alone. In such a short period of time, the sacred martial sect was unable to cultivate a truly powerful younger generation. Thinking of this matter, the more Wu Ho thought about it, the angrier he became. He wished he could tear Zhuowen into pieces and grind his bones to dust. The location of the 3rd round was in the most central area of the 9 underworld platform. It was extremely large, spanning tens of thousands of miles. There were dilapidated fences and dilapidated walls, a barren desert. Inside, there were rugged rocks and sand. In the center of this land, there was a terrifying ravine that was hundreds of feet deep. It was as if the earth had been blasted open by a giant blade that was hundreds of feet long. At the same time, there were dilapidated buildings scattered all over the place. These buildings were like temples. The surface of the temples was pale yellow, as if they had been weathered for countless years. In the sky above this land, there was a thick yellow fog. This yellow fog was constantly changing, forming all kinds of shapes. There were birds and beasts, pavilions and terraces. Moreover, one could clearly feel that this fog was not as simple as a natural landscape. It was very likely that it had extremely powerful offensive power. The 3rd round is called Fighting for Saint Luck. Being able to enter the 3rd round means that you are already a genius among geniuses in this 9 underworld conference. Among you, the least has 1 golden pattern, and the most has 4 or 5 golden patterns. Chao Rong floated above the fog, looking down at the people below, and continued in a clear voice, "Now, I can tell you clearly that the real benefit of Saint Luck is in this 3rd round. In this 3rd round, you can snatch the Saint Luck of others and absorb it into yourself. Moreover, once someone has 10 golden patterns, they will directly become a saint. Even if they have already become a profound sage, they will be able to advance by a small realm without any side effects. As soon as these words came out, the eyes of the countless cultivators below burned with passion. Especially for those cultivators who had yet to enter the saint realm, their eyes burst with a blazing light. Even Qing Longzi, Yan Ruhua, and the others, who had already become profound sages, were moved. It was very difficult to become a saint. If one did not have a heaven-defying opportunity or the full support of a great force, becoming a saint was almost an unattainable dream. Even if one became a saint, the small realms they were divided into were extremely difficult to advance. It would take many years of accumulation to break through a small realm. Now, in the third round, fighting for Saint Luck, once the number of golden patterns between one's eyebrows reached 10, they could directly become a saint or advance by a small realm. This benefit was absolutely heaven-defying. The third round is also the last round. Here, you can fight to your heart's content and vent to your heart's content. In the end, I will select the top 9 and give you the keys to the central region. Of course, if any of you perform well, I will also recommend you to the Chaos Temple. Chao Rong had his hands behind his back, quietly looking down at the crowd below. What he said made the crowd below burst into an uproar. The key to the central region, and the possibility of being recommended to the Chaos Temple? Many cultivators were shocked. The key to the central region was already very attractive to them, not to mention the opportunity to be recommended to the Chaos Temple. The Chaos Temple was a giant force in the central region, and its sphere of influence was much larger than the total area of the 9th Netherworld realm. Moreover, it was said that the cultivation methods of the arcanists of the Eastern region, Southern region, Arctic region, and Western region were inherited from the Chaos Temple of the central region. It could be said that if one could climb up the Chaos Temple, they would undoubtedly have a meteoric rise in the future. Not to mention Jun, even Qing Longzi, Yan Ruhua, and the other top geniuses, who were originally calm like an ancient well, became fanatical and restless. Brother Qing Longzi, how about we join forces to compete for Saint Luck? Yan Ruhua suddenly said to Qing Longzi. Chapter 1476. Yellow fog. The corners of Yan Ruhua's mouth curled into a subtle smile. His eyes were filled with cruelty. Qing Longzi had 6 golden lines between his eyebrows, and he had 5 golden lines between his eyebrows. The two of them were the closest to 10 golden lines among the 100 people. Yan Ruhua knew that if he joined forces with Qing Longzi, they would definitely surpass all the difficulties. It wouldn't be a problem for them to snatch all the golden lines from the others. Although Chao Rong had said that if one gathered 10 golden lines, they would obtain great benefits. Those who hadn't reached the saint realm could become a saint, and those who had become a saint realm cultivator could advance by a small stage. But what if one could gather more golden lines? Without a doubt, the more golden lines one gathered, the more benefits one would obtain. After all, the third stage was called the Fight for Saint Luck, which meant that the Saint Luck in this stage had to be obtained through fighting. As long as one was strong enough, not to mention 10 golden lines, even if one had 20, 30 or more golden lines, one could snatch them from others. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. Although the fight for Saint Luck hadn't started yet, judging from Chao Rong's tone and the restless crowd around him, the competition in this stage would be extremely intense. I won't say much. The central area of the 9 Serenities Sky platform is surrounded by yellow fog all year round. You'd better pay attention to the yellow fog because there are many tiny creatures living in it. These creatures are extremely destructive. If you breathe them into your body, these little things will cause inhumane destruction. After Chao Rong reminded them, he waved his sleeve, and the restriction around the central area was opened. Go in. Swoosh. Swoosh. As soon as these words were spoken, countless figures rushed towards the central area like locusts. They plunged into the depths of the yellow fog, so deep that the bottom could not be seen. Long Tian silently rushed to Zhuowen's side, a trace of inquiry in his eyes. As Zhuan was still using Wenzhuo's identity, his old friends didn't recognize him at all. Only his 2 clones and Long Tian knew his identity. Of course, Zhuan also noticed that the lazy Yang Yi kept looking at him meaningfully, which made Zhuowen frown slightly. This Yang Yi is not simple. Could it be that he has noticed something? Zhuowen said with a frown. In his mind, Xiao He faintly said, I don't think so. Your 100 transformation divine technique has already been cultivated to the point of perfection. Even Xiao Rong couldn't see through your disguise. That Yang Yi is just a profound sage. It's impossible for him to see through your disguise. Hearing this, Yuan nodded and whispered to Long Tian, let's go in too. Long Tian naturally wouldn't disobey Zhuowen's orders. After speaking, the two of them followed closely behind the large group and entered the yellow fog. That sky dragon seems to be very close to that Wenzhua, and it seems like he listens to that Wenzhua. Tian Long and Wenzhua, as the top 10 existences in this point arena, naturally attracted the attention of many warriors. When the two of them walked together, it also caused many people to be surprised. Sect Master, from the looks of it, that sky dragon seems to be in cahoots with Wenzhua. On the square platform where the undying sacred altar was located, many elders behind the undying old monster frowned slightly. Just the strength that Wenzhua had displayed was already troublesome enough. Now, there was an even more terrifying, profound sage-level sky dragon beside him. For the people of the undying sacred altar who wanted to take revenge, it was indeed a bit troublesome. When the 9 Nether Conference is over, Wenzhua will die no matter what. If that sky dragon also wants to interfere, then we will kill both of them at all costs, the undying old monster said fiercely. Hearing this, the many elders behind the undying old monster lowered their heads slightly, their eyes full of reverence. They knew that the undying old monster was really angry this time. He actually planned to kill both Wenzhua and Sky Dragon at all costs. The yellow fog filled the surroundings. As soon as Zhuowen entered this place, he felt dizzy, but after some adjustment, he slowly got used to it. Sure enough, there are tiny creatures here. Zhuowen took a deep breath and inhaled a mouthful of yellow mist. Soon after, he keenly discovered that the yellow mist was filled with densely packed tiny insects. These insects were very small, and ordinary people couldn't see them with their naked eyes. Even Zhuowen relied on the mental energy in his body to reach his lungs. Only then could he barely distinguish the shape of these insects. These insects were yellow in appearance, and there were many barbs on their surface. There was a huge mouthpart on their heads, and there were many sharp teeth in this mouthpart. They looked extremely ferocious. The shape of these insects was simply a destructive machine. Once they entered a human body, they only needed to twist their bodies, and the barbs on their surface would be able to pierce through the flesh of the human body. However, Yun wasn't afraid at all. His physical body had already become a sage, and his bones were the golden bones of Lawrence, a sage body. From the inside to the outside, he had reached the point of invulnerability. Although these tiny insects looked quite terrifying, when they entered Zhuowen's lungs, just as they were about to destroy them, they found that they couldn't do anything. It was as if they weren't touching flesh, but stone. Long Tian couldn't do the same. Although he had already become a profound sage, his internal organs were still extremely fragile. After entering the yellow fog, Long Tian immediately shielded his 5 senses and acupoints to prevent the tiny insects in the yellow fog from invading his body. Zhuowen, aren't you afraid of the insects in the yellow fog? Long Tian noticed Zhuowen's state and couldn't help but ask in surprise. I've tempered my body before, and my internal organs are much stronger than those of ordinary martial artists. These insects can't hurt me, Zhuowen said lightly. Hearing this, Long Tian nodded and didn't ask any more questions. However, in his heart, he was even more in awe of Zhuowen. Although his cultivation was much higher than Zhuowen's, he knew that if he were to fight against Zhuowen, he wouldn't be his opponent at all. One more thing, let me remind you. In here, your power of laws, mental force, spirit, and even your spirit rings can't be used. If you want to obtain power, you have to follow the feeling of Saint Luck. Suddenly, an illusory voice came from above the yellow fog. The owner of this voice was no stranger to Zhuowen and Long Tian. It was Xiao Rong. Sure enough, as Xiao Rong said, I can't use any of the laws and spirit energy in my body, and I can't even open my spirit rings, Long Tian said with a bitter smile. Zhuowen nodded. He had also discovered this. It could be said that he couldn't use anything on his body. Even the ice-fire eyes formed by the ice-fire holy rune was difficult for Zhuan to use. It was as if there was some kind of mysterious power in this yellow fog that was imprisoning all of their strength and means. However, the power of the physical body can't be imprisoned in this yellow fog. Zhuan smiled and said silently in his heart. Although the power of the physical body was also suppressed, it wasn't completely unusable. Zhuan could still use some of its power. Most of our strength is imprisoned here, so what should we use to fight? Long Tian frowned and said helplessly. Chao Rong said to follow the feeling of Saint Luck. The only thing that can be mobilized here is Saint Luck. Zhuan said indifferently. The 3 golden lines between his eyebrows flashed with a blazing golden light, and then the golden light turned into a ray of light that shot out in a certain direction. Long Tian followed suit and urged the golden lines between his eyebrows. The ray of light he emitted swept in the opposite direction of Zhuan. What's going on? Long Tian asked in confusion. Let's follow the rays of light. Maybe we'll know when we get there, Zhuan said. Long Tian nodded. There was no other way now. Zhuan's method was relatively reasonable. Whoosh whoosh. Zhuan and Long Tian weren't indecisive people. Since they had decided, the two of them immediately flew in the opposite direction and passed by each other. The golden words were still floating in the void above the 9th underworld sky platform. The names on the words were all shining with golden light. Suddenly, the golden light of the names at the bottom of the list dimmed and became almost transparent. Someone's already dead. These people are rogue cultivators. Their strength is at the bottom of the top 100. It hasn't been long since we entered, and someone has already died. Isn't this too fast? The abnormality of the words attracted the attention of many people. Although Chao Rong didn't say anything, the dimming of the names meant that someone had died. As long as one wasn't a fool, everyone knew that. Amidst the yellow mist, a vigorous figure shot out like an arrow from a bow. In front of the figure, there was a golden ray of light that extended into the depths of the yellow mist. The figure was closely following the ray of light. We're here. Zhuan's eyes narrowed. Through the layers of yellow mist, his gaze fell on a faint outline in front of him. He could clearly feel that the outline was the end of the ray of light. Zhuan knew that the outline was the destination of this trip. Zhuan stomped his foot, and his speed immediately increased. In approximately 10 minutes, he arrived at the destination of the outline. Stopping, Zhuan raised his head slightly and his gaze fell on the outline. It was a large but dilapidated temple. In front of the temple, there was a huge stone statue of a strange beast. The golden ray of light formed by the Saint Luck was heading towards the depths of the temple. Furthermore, Zhuan also discovered that there were 5 other figures scattered around the temple apart from him. The 5 of them weren't weak. They were basically invincible emperor lords. 2 of them were wearing clothes that made Zhuan's eyes narrow dangerously. The 2 of them had the word martial on their chests, which meant that they were disciples of the sacred martial sect. I heard that there are only 2 disciples of the sacred martial sect in the top 100 this time. I'm pretty lucky to meet these 2 at the start. Zhuan's lips curled up as he sneered. Chapter 1477. Temple. Among the 5 people, the other 3 didn't belong to any faction. They were probably rogue cultivators. The strongest of the 3 was an invincible sovereign lord, and the other 2 were 9th-level great emperors. From the positions of the 5 people, it could be seen that the 2 disciples of the Saint Martial sect and the 3 rogue cultivators were confronting each other. However, Zhuan's arrival immediately broke the stalemate between the 2 groups. Their gazes landed on Zhuan in unison, revealing looks of dread. Zhuan's performance in the second round was amazing. These 5 people were familiar with Zhuan. Attack! Suddenly, the 2 disciples of the sacred martial sect shouted and dashed out in 2 different directions. However, their target wasn't Zhuan. Instead, it was the strongest of the 3 rogue cultivators, the invincible Emperor Lord. The 3 rogue cultivators were focused on Zhuan, so they didn't expect the 2 disciples of the sacred martial sect to attack. They were caught off guard. This was especially true for the invincible Monarch Realm rogue cultivator. He was flustered because he was the target of the two Saint Martial sect disciples. Die. Although they couldn't use any power of laws here, they could use the power of Saint Luck with the golden pattern between their eyebrows. Everyone here relied on Saint Luck to obtain the corresponding power. Otherwise, they would be powerless. No! The rogue cultivator screamed. Although he was also using the power of Saint Luck, he was powerless against two cultivators of the same level. Pucci. The rogue cultivator couldn't hold on for long. Under the attacks of the two, he completely lost his breath. A vast golden light burst out from the dead rogue cultivator's body and drilled into the bodies of the two sacred martial sect disciples. Originally, the two disciples of the sacred martial sect had 1.5 golden patterns between their eyebrows, but after receiving the golden patterns from the rogue cultivator, the golden patterns between their eyebrows became 2 golden patterns. Don't let these two go either. After tasting the sweetness of Saint Luck, the two of them were extremely greedy. They immediately attacked the other 2 9th-level Great Emperors. The 2 9th-level Great Emperors didn't have a single golden pattern between their eyebrows, but the golden light was extremely bright. It wasn't far from transforming into a golden pattern. After all, no matter how small a sesame seed was, it was still meat. Following 2 screams, the 2 rogue cultivators died at the hands of Gu Hui and Hida without exception. After killing the 3 people, the Saint Luck on the 2 of them became even more powerful. It was faintly showing signs of forming a 3rd golden pattern. Hee, this feels great. I didn't expect that in here, the stronger the Saint Luck is, the more terrifying the Saint Luck is, the more. Hida clenched his fist, he felt his body, and his eyes were filled with excitement. Gu Hui also grinned. However, his gaze was locked onto Zhuo Wen's body as he said to Hida, "This one Zhuo has 3 golden runes on his body. I say, junior brother Hida, should we give it a try?" Hida was startled and immediately showed a trace of hesitation. When Zhuo in front of him was a terrifying guy who was ranked 9th this time. His cultivation was at the half-saint level. Even Shueizhe was defeated by him. He was a ruthless person who couldn't be trifled with. Junior brother Hida, what are you afraid of? This Wenjua's strength is indeed terrifying, but strength is useless here. Whether it's Yuan Qi, mental energy, Dharma laws, or even spiritual rings, they can't be used. He can't be compared to us at all. If we can obtain the golden patterns on his body, the golden patterns between our eyebrows will definitely transform again. At that time, it won't be difficult for us to have 4 golden patterns. Gu Hui continued to instigate, and Hida gradually moved. He gritted his teeth and said, "Senior brother is right. This person is indeed strong, but it's not as good as before. In here, Wenjue can't display any of his strength. Snatch his golden patterns." With that, Gu Hui and Hida rushed out, directly toward Juan. Their control of Saint Luck had reached an extremely high level. When they punched out, golden light burst out, as if it could shatter the space and trample the stars. Juan was very calm, and his eyes were as calm as an ancient well. When Gu Hui and Hida arrived in front of Zhuowen, Gu Hui punched out. Zhuowen threw out a punch and smashed it heavily in front of Gu Hui. The power of the holy body began to mobilize. Traces of golden veins covered the surface of Zhuo Wen's fist like a spider web. The punch hit Gu Hui's fist, and the latter screamed. His entire right arm was dislocated and shattered, and blood spurted out. The moment Zhuowen punched Gu Hui, Hida had already arrived behind Zhuowen. He lifted his right foot high and suddenly kicked down. With the support of Saint Luck, Hida's power rose to an extremely terrifying level. "You're the one who's going to die." When Zhuowen forced Gu Hui back with a single punch, Hida's heart was filled with fear. However, when he arrived behind Zhuowen at this moment, the fear in his heart was replaced by ecstasy. After all, his kick was very powerful with the support of Saint Luck. Wenjue couldn't take it at all. Boom! An earth-shattering sound rang out. Hida's kick landed heavily on Zhuowen's back. The terrifying power seemed to be able to shatter an entire mountain. But Zhuowen didn't move. His legs seemed to be rooted to the ground, and he didn't move at all. How is this possible? At this moment, Hida was completely stunned, or rather, he was frightened. At this moment, Zhuan also moved. His right hand formed a claw and suddenly reached behind his back. He grabbed Hida's right leg and squeezed. Crack. The sound of bones cracking rang out as Hida's right ankle was crushed. Hida couldn't help but scream. Yun didn't care about Hida's scream at all. His right hand exerted force and threw Hida to the ground. The terrifying power caused the entire ground to tremble, and cracks appeared on the surface. Zhuowen's movements were very fast. The moment Hida was thrown to the ground, he had already moved. His left hand grabbed Hida's head, and with a little force, his head exploded like a watermelon. The power of the saint body was too terrifying. It could be described as tens of thousands of kilograms of force. Under such great force, Hida died, and even his nascent soul couldn't escape. As soon as Hida died, the saint runes on his body turned into a golden light and drilled into Zhuowen's glabella. Originally, the 3 golden runes between his brows were emitting a blazing golden light. As they spread, 2 more golden runes spread out. At this moment, there were 5 golden runes on Zhuowen's body. The aura of the saint luck in his body was as vast as the ocean. Seeing that Hida had been killed, Gu Hui was so shocked that his mind was in a mess. Without thinking, he planned to rush towards the temple in front of him. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. His legs bounced, and countless golden veins spread out from the bottom of his feet. Boom! A muffled thunder-like sound resounded as the ground beneath Zhuowen's feet shattered into countless pieces. Zhuowen shot out like a cannonball. His speed had soared to the limit, so fast that even his shadow could not be seen. Just as Gu Hui was about to enter the temple, Zhuowen had already arrived above Gu Hui. His right leg smashed down viciously, smashing heavily onto Gu Hui's spine. Blood violently spurted out from Gu Hui's mouth as he viciously smashed onto the ground. His entire spine had been completely shattered by this tremendous force. Gu Hui could only barely struggle, but was completely unable to stand up. Boom! Zhuowen was like a god descending from the heavens. He descended from the sky and ruthlessly stomped on Gu Hui's back. Instantly, Gu Hui's entire body exploded into a bloody mist. Another golden light shot out and entered Zhuowen's glabella. Zhuowen's glabella now had 7 golden runes. At that moment, Zhuowen's entire body erupted with an extremely terrifying golden light, dyeing his entire body golden. This feels great. Silently feeling the benefits of the saint luck, Zhuowen's eyes were filled with excitement. Maybe I can really become a saint when I have 10 golden runes. Zhuowen murmured, and then his gaze fell on the temple in front of him. The golden light from the golden runes on my glabella swept into this temple. I wonder what's in this temple? With that, Zhuowen took a step forward and entered the temple in an instant. Bush, 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 bush. The moment Zhuowen entered the temple, 2 figures with powerful auras rushed over. If Zhuowen was still here, he would definitely recognize these 2 people. Weren't they Qing Longzi and Yen Ruhua? Was there a great battle here? Qing Longzi looked around and quickly noticed the scattered corpses. This temple must have been taken by someone else. Let's go find another temple. We can hunt for other prey along the way. Yen Ruhua licked his lips. The golden runes on his glabella had grown to 8. He pointed at his glabella with his right hand, and the 8 golden runes left his body and formed a golden sword in front of him. This temple is really good. It actually hides a secret method of using the golden runes as a means of attack. Yen Ruhua chuckled and continued. With that, Yen Ruhua suddenly looked at Qing Longzi and said, "There must be someone in this temple. I say, Brother Qing Longzi, should we wait for him?" Qing Longzi shook his head and said indifferently, "Forget about waiting for him. We don't even know when he will come out. We can use this time to hunt for the golden runes on other cultivators." That's true. Waiting is a waste of time. Yen Ruhua nodded. Thus, the 2 of them discussed for a while more before leaving the temple. The moment Hida and Gu Hui died, on the square platform where Martial Netherworld was located, Wu Ho froze on the spot. His gaze was fixated on the words as his entire body trembled. Hida and Gu Hui are both dead. Taking a deep breath, Wu Ho said softly. The elders behind him did not say anything. They knew very well that although Wu Ho looked calm on the surface, he was still a saint. Chapter 1478. Saint Luck Materialization. After entering the temple, Yuan noticed that it wasn't very large and the surroundings were pitch black. However, with his eyesight, he was still able to see the general situation of the temple clearly. The decorations inside were very simple. There was a table in the center, and there were extremely scattered stone tables and stone stools in the surroundings. There was nothing else besides these. However, there were many strange and precious beasts carved on the surrounding walls of the temple. They were in strange shapes and were lifelike. However, Zhuowen had never seen or even heard of such a thing. Hundun, by Zhe, Yinglong, Candle Dragon. Unlike Zhuowen's indifference, Xiao He and Cheng Huang's voices suddenly exploded in his mind. After that, a ray of black light and a ray of yellow light flashed out from between Zhuowen's brows at the same time. Xiao He and Cheng Huang's gazes descended onto the surrounding wall carvings. What's wrong? You recognize these wall carvings as well? A trace of surprise appeared in Zhuowen's eyes, and he hurriedly asked Xiao He and Cheng Huang. The strange and precious beasts depicted on these wall carvings are all ancient strange beasts. However, all of these strange beasts perished in the ancient battle. Xiao He's gaze was complicated, and she couldn't help but shake her head and sigh with emotion. Xiao He is right. Every single one of these ancient strange beasts was comparable to a celestial saint, but none of them survived the ancient battle. Cheng Huang nodded. Comparable to a celestial saint? None of them survived? Hun was stunned, and then he revealed an expression of shock. Celestial saint strange beasts had actually perished because of this. He'd even heard about it from Xiao He in the past. Countless saints had fallen in that battle, and even celestial saints couldn't avoid it. Then, exactly what kind of battle could possess such terrifying might? What exactly was that battle all those years ago? Could it be related to Skyworm? Zhuan was puzzled, but he quickly thought of the heavenly worm that even the Chaos Temple had to treat with caution. The Primal Chaos Temple was one of the top powers in the Central Plains. Something that even such a great power had to treat with caution was definitely extraordinary. Perhaps this heavenly worm was the mastermind behind the great battle back then. Your guess is not quite correct. That great battle was indeed somewhat related to the sky insect. However, the sky insect was not the main culprit. Xiao He shook her head and continued, perhaps you don't know how powerful the Heavenly Armor Continent was 10,000 years ago? Back then, the Heavenly Armor Continent had a grand event like the Thousand Saints Conference. There were countless saints and many immortal saints. Furthermore, there were ultimate powerhouses in the divine transformation realm back then. A mere heavenly insect couldn't do anything to the Heavenly Armor Continent. Hearing this, Zhuan became even more curious. It seemed that there were still some secrets about the great battle 10,000 years ago. Otherwise, Xiao He wouldn't be so cautious. What made Zhuowen even more puzzled was that there was actually a powerhouse in the divine transformation realm 10,000 years ago. With such a terrifying powerhouse in charge, a mere heavenly insect might not have been able to threaten the entire continent. Then, what kind of thing could have destroyed the Heavenly Armor Continent, which was at the peak of martial arts 10,000 years ago, into its current state? Perhaps sensing Zhuowen's puzzled gaze, Xiao He sighed softly and said, let's not talk about this. When you really step into the Central Plains, the truth will slowly emerge. I'll only tell you that the 9 great sacred talismans in the legends of the Heavenly Armor Continent have an inseparable relationship with that powerhouse in the divine transformation realm. Zhuan frowned slightly, but could only sigh inwardly. He knew very well that since Xiao He didn't say anything, it probably wasn't time yet. Or rather, he didn't have the qualifications to know the truth of the past. After looking around the temple again, Yun found that there was nothing else around except for the wall carvings. However, his gaze quickly fell on the table in the center. Rolls of bamboo slips were casually placed on top of it, piled up into a small mountain. In the beginning, Yun didn't pay much attention to the bamboo slips on the table. However, after looking around, he finally began to suspect that the bamboo slips in front of him were not ordinary. Walking in front of the table, Jun reached out with his right hand, took the bamboo slips in his hand, and opened them. Suddenly, a strong light burst out from the bamboo slips. The glowing words inside were like a vortex, surrounding Zhuan and wrapping him up. At the same time, the 7 golden runes between Zhuan's eyebrows began to emit an extremely blazing golden light. Then, the golden runes began to peel off from between his eyebrows one by one. Saint Luck concretization. You can concretize any weapon you imagine in your mind. The more golden runes there are, the more powerful the weapon will be. As the glowing words surrounded Zhuan's body, a stream of content was transmitted to Zhuan's mind. Saint Luck concretization? After pondering for a moment, Zhuan said in a deep voice, "Spear concretization." As soon as his voice fell, the 7 golden runes began to combine in front of him, forming a large golden spear that was about 10 feet long. On the surface of the large golden spear, golden runes flowed, looking mysterious and ancient. This process was very similar to the scene when Yen Ruhua concretized the golden runes into a long sword. Obviously, Yen Ruhua had also entered the temple and successfully concretized a long sword. Zhuan swung the large golden spear in his hand. The blade of the spear cut through the air, producing a hissing sound that was extremely ear-piercing. The space where the spear had passed through was also torn into a black crack because of the powerful force. It's so sharp that it can even cut through space. Zhuan's eyes were filled with joy as he muttered to himself. It seems that the purpose of this temple is to teach you how to materialize your own Saint Luck. The stronger your Saint Luck is, the stronger your weapon will be. It also means that if you want to become stronger, you have to fight for more Saint Luck from others. Xiao He and Cheng Huang rushed to Zhuan's side and stared at the large golden spear in Zhuan's hand with satisfaction. Zhuan immediately summoned Xiao He and Cheng Huang into his sea of consciousness and stepped out of the temple. Maybe it's time to summon my 2 clones back. It's time to do something big. Walking out of the temple, Zhuan suddenly found that there were 3 people gathered outside the temple. Perhaps it was because they saw Zhuan come out, but the 3 people who were waiting suddenly had a look of fear in their eyes. "It's Wenjue. Let's go," one of the young men in black said in a low voice and immediately fled into the distance. The other 2 were stunned for a moment and immediately followed the young man. The 3 of them were quite fast and disappeared in a flash. "Shuri!" Looking at the young man in black who fled without even looking, Zhuan's lips curled into a smile. Yun was no stranger to this young man. Just like him, he was Shuri, a disciple of the League of Assassins in the 7th arena during the 2nd round of the competition for Saint Luck. At that time, after Zhuan had killed Wulan and Zheng Tang in the arena, he had met Shuri later on. Originally, Zhuan had planned to get rid of Shuri quickly and cleanly, but the latter was extremely cunning. He had hidden himself with the art of assassination and immediately forfeited, thus avoiding death. Now that he had met Shuri again, how could Zhuan let him go? And the 2 people behind Shuri, looking at their clothes, were also disciples of the League of Assassins. Moreover, their cultivation was not weak. They were both invincible emperor lords. "You can't run away." Zhuan smiled coldly. The golden rune between his eyebrows swept out and formed a golden spear. Immediately after, Zhuan threw it directly at Shuri, who was fleeing. "No!" Feeling the whistling wind behind him, Shuri's face turned ferocious. He roared angrily and directly turned around. He tried his best to mobilize the power of Saint Luck to block the spear. Shuri also had 2 golden runes, but he had not learned the ability to materialize Saint Luck. Obviously, Shuri had not entered any of the temples. This also meant that Shuri would be at a great disadvantage under this attack. Pucci. Without a doubt, Shuri's defense was like a piece of paper. The golden spear's aura was like a rainbow as it directly pierced through his body. Shuri's body was torn apart, and a cloud of blood mist burst out. "Run!" Looking at Shuri, who had been killed in an instant, the other 2 disciples of the League of Assassins shouted and fled in 2 different directions. Zhuan swept to the side of the golden spear, grabbed the handle with his right hand, and threw the golden spear towards the young man on the right. Zhuan's body chased after the man on the left. Relying on the power of the saint body, Zhuan was like a vigorous cheetah, constantly running on the ground at an extremely fast speed. Ah! A miserable cry rang out. The golden spear caught up with the young man on the right and pierced through his chest. Without any surprise, he exploded into a cloud of blood mist and died. No, I can't die. The martial artist on the left naturally heard his companion's miserable cry and was even more frightened. Even if you don't want to die, you have to die. An indifferent voice sounded out. Immediately, the martial warriors saw that Zhuowen had unknowingly appeared in front of him. That huge fist rumbled as it smashed towards the martial warriors. No! The martial artist on the left wanted to make a last-ditch effort and quickly used the power of the Saint Luck. Boom! However, even if the martial artist used the power of the Saint Luck under the attack of Zhuowen's powerful saint body, it seemed very fragile. The defense set up by the Saint Luck was directly shattered. Pucci. Looking at the disciples of the League of Assassins who had been blasted into pieces, Zhuowen's eyes were indifferent, without any pity. Push, push, push. 3 golden lights gushed out from the 3 corpses and drilled into Zhuowen's glabella. Immediately, the golden rune on Zhuowen's glabella began to spread and finally condensed into the 8th golden rune. Only 1 golden rune has been condensed? Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and revealed a look of doubt. Shi and the other 2 disciples of the League of Assassins had a total of 5 golden runes. 5 golden runes only added 1 golden rune, which made Zhuowen feel a little helpless. Chapter 1479. 10 golden runes amidst the endless yellow fog, the slaughter was carried out silently. Battles were spreading out almost every moment, and the aftermath of the battle was surging. 3 days had passed, and half of the names on the light screen had dimmed. However, the dimmed names didn't necessarily mean that they were dead. Some of them were lucky enough to be sent out. After being defeated, those who were sent out decisively took out their Saint Luck and gave it to the winner. If they didn't have a death grudge, the winner of the battle wouldn't casually kill his opponent. Someone has reached 10 golden runes. Suddenly, a golden light soared into the sky. Chao Rong raised his head and looked at the golden light. His voice was so loud that everyone on the square platform could hear it clearly. Who is it? Chao Rong's announcement caused an uproar. They looked around, wanting to see who the owner of the 10 golden runes was. It's Qing Longzi. Look, he's about to advance. Suddenly, a surprised voice was transmitted over. Immediately, everyone followed that person's instructions and shot their gazes over. On a rock to the east of the yellow fog world, Qing Longzi silently stood there. Between his eyebrows, 10 golden lines flickered with a blazing golden light. A vast saint aura spread out from Qing Longzi's body and soared into the sky. It was like a golden rod piercing through the sky. Looking at Qing Longzi, who was covered in golden light, Sapphire Shore smiled and said, "It seems that Qing Longzi is about to advance to the Glimpse Profound Saint Realm." In the yellow mist world, the Glimpse Profound Saint Realm is the most terrifying realm. Who can compete with Qing Longzi? Elder Raiwa's eyes flashed in surprise. The smile on Sapphire Shore's face grew wider, but his words were modest. Isn't Ruhua still missing 1 golden rune? If he can gather 10 golden runes, he should be able to advance to the 2nd Nirvana Saint Realm, Sapphire Shore said with a smile. Elder Raiwa nodded and looked at the rock not far from where Qing Longzi was. There was another figure standing there. It was none other than Yen Ruhua. Yen Ruhua stared enviously at Qing Longzi, who was in the midst of breaking through, and muttered in a low voice, "I'm still missing 1 golden pattern. I must gather 10 golden patterns so that I can directly break through to the 2nd Profound Nirvana Profound Saint Realm." Qing Longzi's breakthrough caused a huge commotion and attracted the attention of all the cultivators in the yellow mist world. They all gathered 100 meters away from Qing Longzi, not daring to get close. Qing Longzi's strength was terrifying, and they didn't dare to act rashly. Moreover, Yen Ruhua was standing guard not far from Qing Longzi. Senior brother Qing Longzi is. These four were the disciples of the Blue Dragon Hall. The one in the lead looked skinny, but the aura on his body was extremely terrifying. He should have reached the semi-saint realm. Brother Qing Longzi is about to break through. You guys wait for a while, Yen Ruhua said indifferently. The four disciples looked at each other with cautious eyes. Immediately, the golden runes on their foreheads flickered and materialized into their respective weapons. They were secretly on guard against the other cultivators gathering around them. Qing Longzi was about to break through, so they naturally had to guard him well. If he was disturbed by others, then all their efforts would be in vain. This Qing Longzi is really powerful. He actually gathered 10 golden runes so quickly. When he breaks through to the Nirvana Saint realm, I'm afraid that no one in the Yellow Mist world will be his opponent. The Flower Fairy and 2 other women stood in a withered tree. Their beautiful eyes stared at Qing Longzi. The Flower Fairy already had 7 golden runes, but compared to Qing Longzi and Yen Ruhua, there was still a certain gap. Although the Flower Fairy was extremely eager for the golden runes on Qing Longzi's body, she also understood that not to mention Qing Longzi, even Yen Ruhua was enough to make him suffer. Not only the Flower Fairy, but Gui Sha, Sha Zi, Yaksha, Yun Ran and Yang Yi, the top geniuses of the Nether Realm, also gathered around. However, they were all on guard against each other. After all, they were all monstrous geniuses of the Nether Realm, and their strength was extremely terrifying. Coupled with the cruelty of the 3rd stage of the competition for Saint Luck, it was basically impossible to trust anyone who didn't unify their forces. After all, no one knew if they would suddenly attack and seize their Saint Luck. Zhuan, what should we do? On another rock, Long Tian whispered to Zhuan. Long Tian was a descendant of the Ryuka and had a natural hatred for the Blue Dragon Hall. Now, he couldn't wait to kill Qing Longzi and the other disciples of the Blue Dragon Hall. Wait! Zhuan shook his head slightly, and then his mind moved slightly, as if he was communicating with something. On the other side, Mo Wen, who was behind Gui Sha, narrowed his eyes slightly, and wisps of demonic qi rolled out. Mo Wen, what's wrong with you? Gui Sha tilted his head slightly, and a pair of soul-stirring eyes stared coldly at Mo Wen. Nothing. Mo Wen was expressionless as he answered indifferently, and the demonic qi on his body gradually withdrew. Hearing this, Gui Sha frowned. Just now, he could feel an extremely terrifying demonic qi gushing out of Mo Wen's body. On the other side, a subtle smile appeared at the corner of Buddha's mouth, and the Buddha's light around him became more intense, like a slowly rising sun. Eldest senior brother is about to break through, and has reached a critical moment. We have to protect him well. The skinny disciple of the Blue Dragon Hall also felt the sudden intense demonic qi on Qing Longzi's body. He narrowed his eyes and shouted to the other disciples. The remaining 3 disciples nodded. They didn't dare to be careless in the slightest. Their eyes revealed vigilance as they secretly took precautions. Longtian, you go first. I'll wait for an opportunity, Zhuan said in a low voice. Long Tian nodded, and then took a step forward, directly rushing towards Qing Longzi. Stop him. The 4 disciples of the Blue Dragon Hall narrowed their eyes to needles. The weapons formed by the golden patterns in their hands exploded with blazing golden light, and they all blasted towards Long Tian. Long Tian coldly snorted. He grabbed with his right hand, and the 7 golden patterns between his eyebrows separated from his body, turning into a large golden halberd that was 10 feet long. Boom! He suddenly swept his right hand, and golden light filled the sky. Countless golden halberd shadows swirled in all directions, and crushed down like a mountain. Stop him! The 4 disciples of the Blue Dragon Hall were also capable. The weapons in their hands continuously blasted out, forming an airtight golden barrier that barely blocked Long Tian's attack. You're courting death! Yen Ruhua coldly sneered. He took a step forward, and his right fist flickered with blazing golden light, and blasted towards Long Tian. This fist carried the power of 10,000 caddies, as if it could collapse the entire sky and smash it into pieces. Feeling the terrifying power of this fist, Long Tian's face changed greatly. He swept the golden halberd in his right hand and tried to block Yen Ruhua's fist. However, the 4 disciples of the Blue Dragon Hall were extremely clever. They desperately attacked and actually managed to entangle Long Tian. For a moment, Long Tian became Yen Ruhua's living target. Long Tian is courting death if he goes alone. The flower fairy curled her lips and sneered. After all, Yen Ruhua had gathered 9 golden runes. Her power was vast and mighty. She was much stronger than the average warrior. Although Long Tian also had 7 golden runes, he was probably not Yen Ruhua's opponent. In the flower fairy's view, Long Tian's attack was simply unwise. The moment Yen Ruhua attacked, Wen, who had been standing behind Gui Sha, suddenly jumped out. Like a wisp of green smoke, he swept in front of Yen Ruhua in an instant. At the same time, the Buddhist rune on the other side also burst with golden light. A huge light wheel appeared behind his head, and he descended like a god or a demon. Wen and Buddhist rune descended together, and instantly blocked in front of Yen Ruhua. Boom! The 3 collided, and an extremely terrifying fluctuation erupted. Immediately, Yen Ruhua retreated a few steps, while Wen and Buddhist rune retreated more than 10 steps. This, Gui Sha was stunned. He did not expect that Wen would not listen to his orders and act on his own. Tai Mo, what's going on? As he spoke, Gui Sha's gaze landed on the black-robed Tai Mo Lord behind him. Tai Mo Lord frowned slightly, his eyes flashing. The moment Wen and Buddhist rune moved out together, he'd already guessed that Juan might be in this world of yellow fog. My master has returned. Gui Sha, I will also go help Wen. Tai Mo shook his head and took a step forward. Under Gui Sha's stunned gaze, he also shot out. He joined Wen and Buddhist rune to fight Yen Ruhua together. This, Gui Sha was more and more confused, especially about the master that Tai Mo Lord had mentioned. Just who was this person? Tai Mo and Wen were both proud and arrogant people. Gui Sha had wanted to force them to submit to him on the deserted island, but they'd both refused. Now, hearing Tai Mo's master for the first time, how could Gui Sha not be surprised? Master? What kind of person can make Tai Mo recognize him as his master? As he spoke, Gui Sha's cold gaze swept across the crowd. He knew that the master that Tai Mo spoke of was probably hiding in the crowd. With Wen, Buddhist rune, and Tai Mo Lord working together, Yen Ruhua's original advantage was immediately reversed. She even seemed to be at a disadvantage. Damn it! Yen Ruhua cursed in a low voice. Swoosh! A figure suddenly flashed out explosively like a vigorous cheetah, and it instantly tore through space and flashed over to Long Tian's side. Spurt! Spurt! A golden spear swept through the air, and the 4 disciples of the Blue Dragon Hall were pierced through by the spear. Blood spurted out as their heads separated from their bodies. Gurgle! 4 heads immediately rolled on the ground. Blood spurted in the air. It looked extremely terrifying and mournful. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.